Currently, on the outskirts of the Gold Coast in Australia, Xianwu holds his teammate in his arms. She's out of strength, and to make matters worse, has both legs amputated. Looking at Xianwu, she calls for his attention. Xianwu interrupts her, saying she just needs to wait a bit longer since help is on the way and will arrive soon. The teammate smiles, but says it's completely useless now, as it's too late for her. She just asks, please, that Xianwu take her ability to teleport. Startled by her request, Xianwu asks what she means by that. The woman then smiles and says she knows everything, that in fact, she says something that at the moment he can't interpret. He is shocked to hear those words coming from her. He just asks her not to continue speaking. The woman asks him to live intensely and to do so with her teleportation ability. Her hand falls to the ground after her last breath while still alive. Xianwu clenches his teeth and then apologizes to her, now dead. He begins to gather energy in his body, and then he starts to scream loudly as colossal energy overflows from his body. He continues screaming more and more intensely until finally, he calms down, having taken her teleportation ability. He was exhausted from going through that process. Xianwu looks at his companion's body, and fixing his gaze on her, he recalls what she told him just now. He begins to get up from the ground, and when he is completely standing, he remembers that she just mentioned that she knows the truth, that Xianwu is a user of the carnivore ability, which is basically capable of absorbing the abilities of other metahumans. He puts his hand on his chest while still overflowing with energy, and remembers that his friend just asked him to, please, live intensely. He takes a deep breath, and then teleports away from that desert, leaving the dead body of his friend behind. In this world, several holes in the sky appeared that looked more like portals to another world. From these fissures emerged various beasts that definitely were not from this world. As a result, millions of people died around the world besides those who were injured, and the people who survived were separated from their families or became refugees. Several powerful countries tried to combat those monsters with their military powers, whether with their supersonic missiles, their warships, their jets, and their tanks. The military force went all out against those beasts from another dimension. The damage was huge, caused by this fight against them. However, against the powerful beasts, humans were completely weak. All humans could do was run away or try to hide in some way. Either way, hunger and terror were already reigning in that world, everywhere. That was definitely the end of the world. However, 3 years after this event, something happened. After that, the so-called meta-humans emerged, who were summarily humans with superpowers. With the emergence of these people, they were able to contain these special monsters that not even the most powerful countries could with their military powers. And the number of meta-humans grew more and more, starting the counterattack of humanity. The meta-humans joined forces, thus creating a safety zone. This safety zone was simply called the city. In this city, people could live peacefully, just like before the monsters emerged through the portals in the sky. However, on the other hand, there were still zones that were not safe, called the jungle. The people living in the jungle went through extreme violence and lived amidst anarchy, and were still afraid of death. Basically, the world was divided into safety zones and non-safety zones. Returning to the present, a group of metahumans is walking through the jungle. One of them turns and asks the guide if they haven't reached their destination yet. The guide asks if he really isn't a metahuman, but just an ordinary human. He also takes the opportunity to ask if his name is really Xianwu. The guide confirms he was right. Xianwu was on that journey as a guide for that group. The group then arrives at a location in an abandoned city. One of the adventurers asks the guide how far they were from their destination. Xianwu tells him to look up. All the adventurers look up and see various bodies wrapped in spider webs. Xianwu replies that they have already entered the domain of the bronze spiders. Xianwu begins to explain that the 19th class bronze spiders are relatively easy to defeat. He explains that one must first cut all 8 of their legs before cutting off the head to collect just the body. He continues excitedly with the explanation, saying that, if possible, they need to start with the front 2 legs, as it is through these legs that they launch their attacks. Xianwu, still gesturing to explain, says that everyone needs to be extremely careful with the white webs that come out of their mouths when they attack. He explains that it is a very powerful attack that can decapitate anyone with extreme ease if someone gets distracted. The leader of the adventurers was already nervous from all that explanation and responds, "I get it, damn it." He says not to act all tough in front of the meta-humans, since he, Xianwu, is just a human. Xianwu says it's true, that the adventurer leader even mentioned that he had already defeated a bearded salamander of the 18th class. Xianwu apologizes if he was disrespectful, At that moment, a terrible aura emerges in the place where they were. Not only does an aura emerge, but something begins to move at high speed. Shanwu senses the presence of something approaching and runs towards the adventurer leader, asking him to move away. That something is approaching. He then runs with all his might and pushes the leader away, causing the spider's web to miss the target. Xianwu yells for everyone to pay attention and to move away. The adventurer leader is worried about what he was seeing, already swallowing hard in the face of the situation. He realizes that he is facing a gigantic spider while asking everyone to get into position. The leader, already trembling, asks if that was really a 19th class spider. The giant spider, furious at the presence of those metahumans, prepares its attack. Xianwu is worried as he realized that it is about to launch its web again. Xianwu, realizing this, yells for everyone to pay attention and to dodge the attack. However, everyone was in shock and could barely move from so much fear. The giant spider, without wasting time, launches its web towards one of the metahumans. The metahuman who was the target of the web couldn't dodge in time and has his head decapitated, just as Xianwu said would happen if the web hit someone. The adventurer leader was already in shock just seeing the giant spider. Now he is sitting on the ground, completely traumatized, screaming as he sees the head of his friend thrown on the ground. Xianwu says that the situation is shit and asks everyone if they are just going to sit around waiting to be killed. Xianwu realizes that there is something wrong with the level of skill of that squad, since their attack was very low. He remembers being instructed by a woman, saying that this attack squad had already managed to defeat even an 18th class beast. So all Xianwu would need to do was just guide them through the jungle and make a lot of money in the process. Xianwu gets furious, saying that was a damn lie they told him. That woman said this squad was well trained, but that was not the case. The spider prepares to attack again, but this time with its leg. Xianwu is concerned and alerts everyone that the giant spider will attack again. The squad leader, enraged, draws his sword and goes after the giant spider. He blocks the spider's attack with his sword. The spider puts its two legs towards the sword, trying to break through that block. The squad leader, who is a metahuman, begins to gather energy in his body while holding the sword with one hand. After gathering energy, he punches the leg of the giant spider. Upon hitting it, he delivers a strong electrical discharge with his abilities. The spider is then completely electrocuted by his skills. Xianwu, seeing this, says that apparently the leader has an ability that uses electricity, so at least those people were truly metahumans. The spider falls a moment after receiving that strong electricity. The squad leader brings his sword forward and asks everyone present to attack it with all their might. The members then start running towards the spider. Now everyone had gathered the courage to face it. They all thrust their spears into the body of the giant spider. The spider was still energized, so everyone was able to attack its body without any problems. Xianwu, concerned that they had not followed the instructions, shouts calling them idiots and asks them to first cut the legs and not start with the body. The spider then awakens again. It swings its leg to eliminate the people who were there. People were thrown far away, while others remained standing. One person was thrown far, causing a small explosion with the impact on the ground. This person was already dead from the impact, as they were thrown onto a rock filled with iron that pierced their entire body. The leader of that squad becomes even more enraged upon seeing another group member being killed. He furiously runs towards the spider, saying he will kill it himself. He delivers an attack with his sword, ordering the giant spider to die. However, the spider counterattacks with its leg, causing him to defend himself. At that moment, the spider attacks with its other leg from behind, thus piercing his belly. The squad leader drops the sword and begins to scream, feeling great pain. The giant spider begins to carry his body towards its mouth. The leader becomes furious, saying this shit is not going to end like this. He grabs the spider's leg with all his might and uses all his electrical powers to completely electrocute the spider. He continues screaming insanely, while his ability discharges powerful electricity throughout the spider's body. The giant spider, feeling great pain from that ability, throws him away from it. The leader falls next to Xianwu, still with his belly pierced. Xianwu looks at the leader on the ground and laments the situation. The giant spider is now eyeing Xianwu. With its red vision, it stares intently at him. Xianwu, worried about the situation, laments that the attack squad was full of novices, as they all died, leaving only him. He wonders how things got so messed up in that way. The giant spider advances on Xianwu, while he says his role there was just to be a guide, and look what it has become. Elsewhere, in Area 17 of the desert, several people continue their lives peacefully. Inside a house, A person asks Beatrice if she managed to get another. Beatrice responds over the phone, while Kim responds that it's okay. He will send someone. Kim sits thoughtfully. He is the branch manager of Area 17. Meanwhile, in another place, Jamie, who is the exchange receptionist, is looking at herself in a mirror. She is startled when someone arrives screaming her name. It was Kim, who asks her to tell the Chansu hunting team to come to the exchange center. Jamie, after getting startled, responds that it's okay. She asks if it's something related to the repair of the barriers again, as it seems to be happening frequently. Kim takes a deep breath and says yes, it's about that. He wonders what Beatrice is thinking by asking for this. Jamie lowers her head and asks if Kim said something. He responds that he is talking to himself and that she shouldn't worry. Kim takes the opportunity to ask about Xianwu. Jamie responds that Xianwu is guiding a team in hunting bronze spiders. Kim asks if it's just some bronze spiders. It's strange because as they are weak, they should have finished already. Kim then heads towards the door, saying it's all right since Xianwu has something special about him, and asks Jamie to let him know when Xianwu returns. She replies that she will take care of it. Before leaving the room, Kim remembers to ask something. He inquires about the rank of the hunters Xianwu is guiding. Back in the den of the bronze spiders, Xianwu stands before the giant spider. He laments that he was the only survivor, as it seems they only sent novices on such a suicidal mission. The giant spider prepares to attack the last human left there. Xianwu reaches into his clothing and pulls out a shotgun, stating that he is just a guide. The giant spider, without wasting time, launches its web at Xianwu at full speed. Xianwu dodges with extreme ease and aims at the spider. He cocks his shotgun and then fires at the giant spider. The shotgun bullets head towards the bronze spider. The squad leader, who apparently hasn't died yet, watches the fight from a distance, laughing and saying that mere bullets won't even scratch a spider like that. Xianwu hears this and tells him to shut up and focus on watching the fight. The bullets penetrate the spider's body. The bullets seem more like a time bomb as they start flashing. The bullets flash increasingly stronger until they cause a huge explosion in the bronze spider. The spider is completely bloodied by the damage caused by the explosion. The squad leader is surprised, guessing they are core bullets, and asks Xianwu if he had those from the start. Then why did he only use them after the entire team started dying? Xianwu turns to him stressed and asks if he even realizes that, to begin with, if all of them had been as skilled as reported in their files, none of this would have happened. The leader grits his teeth, worried, since that is true. Xianwu, still stressed, reloads his gun saying that wasting such precious core bullets because of trash like them was the last straw. He looks at the spider, which is now badly injured, and tells the leader to pay attention, as they are just fake metahumans. Xianwu draws his machete and says that even a normal human can kill a rank 19 monster with experience and the right equipment. He then starts running towards the giant spider, while holding his machete. He jumps towards the spider saying he has been on hundreds of hunts just as a guide. Xianwu plunges his machete into the spider. It begins to scream in pain. Xianwu fixes his gaze on it and then prepares to cut its leg. He successfully cuts off the spider's leg completely. He then continues to cut the other legs. He proceeds calmly and handles his machete carefully, cutting leg by leg until he cuts the last one. The spider is now on the ground completely motionless, having had all its legs cut off. Xianwu, looking at the leader, says he explained all this, that one needs to focus on the legs first. He then stands face to face with the giant spider. He holds the machete with both hands while screaming that after all, this one needs to aim for the head. And he plunges the knife with all his strength into the head of the spider, saying that's how it's done. Xianwu continues frenetically cutting the head of that bronze spider. The leader is frightened by how terrifying Xianwu looked at that moment. Xianwu then finally completely cuts off the spider's head, finishing it. He looks up while still criticizing the squad that was trembling in front of a beast that can hardly be considered big compared to others that exist. He wipes his face and says that the squad reeks of novices to the bone. He asks the leader if the rank everyone put on the forms at the exchange center was fake. Xianwu also says that bearded salamanders of rank 18 shed their skin once a year, and asks why they pretended to have hunted one, if all they did apparently was pick up its skin they found on the ground. The leader doesn't know what to answer, while Xianwu stands face to face with him. Xianwu remembers the time when everyone charged at the spider. It was incredible they had so much courage, even though they were all charlatans. Even as they were dying, they still pressed forward. Xianwu mentions that it was impressive when the leader had his stomach pierced, and yet held on firmly. He even grabbed the spider's leg with all his strength to retaliate. Xianwu admits he was impressed by all this. He steps on the leader's wound and says that instead of wasting time forging fake ranks, they should have been training with all their might to one day easily defeat a spider like that. Shanwu adds that he knows they probably all have a reason for hunting even with a fake rank, but that's not his problem, and asks the leader if he knows the price for trying to deceive the exchange center. Shanwu points his machete at the leader's face as he says he knows that doing so is a crime. Xianwu, furious, laments that he doesn't have the authority to kill them all since he so wants to cut off the leader's head for doing that. At this moment, Xianwu hears a voice in his head saying, "Yes, kill him. Take..." He is startled, not understanding what he just heard. The leader says that he is almost dying anyway, and it will be difficult for him to wait until the center decides to get rid of him. The leader closes his eyes and turns his head, while Xianwu is still on top of him. Shanwu is worried about what he just heard. He has no idea what just happened. It's as if that voice wanted Xianwu to kill that guy. Shanwu starts to imagine that he is imagining things. He then takes a deep breath, trying to process what's happening, and remembers that during his conversation with the exchange, where it was said that the attack squad had killed a rank 18, if Shanwu guided them, he could make easy money. After remembering this conversation, he gets even angrier, saying that Jamie is a fool. Shanwu returns to the exchange and slams the door with all his might, shouting for Jamie. He walks up to her asking how she dares to throw trash like that at him. Jamie, completely frightened, asks Xianwu to calm down since it's not normal for him to get so upset. Shanwu approaches Jamie and says she's right. It really isn't normal for him to get so upset. This is for her to realize how serious that situation was. Xianwu questions how the branch manager can't tell the difference between a shed salamander skin and a hunted skin. Jamie, worried and not knowing what to answer, says that she was also wronged since those hunters also planned to deceive them. Xianwu, irritated, says there will be no commission fee for her this time, and that from that day on, she is to provide all possible information about future clients. He says all this while holding Jamie's face. Jamie, worried, asks how they can break the rules of the center. At this moment, two people are heading towards the room where Xianwu is, and they can hear the conversation. Shanwu, irritated, says he's exhausted and that if it wasn't for the branch manager, he would have already cut ties with Area 17. Jamie is worried to hear this. Jamie tries to explain that even though they speak informally, the metahumans are quite sensitive because of the guides moving through the areas. Xianwu, stressed, says it's crap that they only talk about metahuman here and metahuman there. If they're going to die anyway, why should they care if it happens at the hands of a beast or at the hands of a hunter? At this moment, Xianwu remembers the squad leader using his electricity ability against the bronze spider and starts to think that it's crap, that if only Xianwu had a little power like that charlatan hunter, he would use it much better than him. At this moment, a fist comes towards Xianwu and punches him away, throwing him against the wall. This person runs up and grabs Xianwu by the neck, leaving him completely powerless. This person, who is a metahuman, is holding Xianwu by the neck in the air. This person says that the metahuman is here, and asks if he should kill Xianwu as he just requested. Xianwu is worried in that situation since he can't do anything without powers. The man, named Kim Seonghu, says he sees the audacity in Xianwu's eyes. The two are interrupted by someone saying that no one associated with Node can act as a representative of the guild and use the name of Node as needed. This was said by Unjan, who also emphasizes that any action with the intention of harming members associated with Node will be interpreted as an attack on Node. Unjan then asks if he isn't aware of the Node rules, explaining about Node. After the destruction, it was the only guild that worked to maintain peace within the desert lands. They worked to create a safe place for humanity to survive and took on requests to hunt demonic beasts. That is Node. Unjan continues, questioning if a Node metahuman member attacking another non-metahuman member is sure he wants to be punished just for doing that. Kim Seong-hu releases his grip on Xianwu's neck, allowing him to fall to the ground. Xianwu starts breathing heavily since he had been choked until just moments ago. Unjan approaches and asks if he is okay. Xianwu replies that he is fine. An angry Unjan asks Kim Seong-hu what his purpose was in acting like an animal and causing such a scene. He remains silent. At this moment, someone enters the room asking if everyone there has already met. It was the leader of Team Merlin, named Chansu. He draws the attention of Unjan and Xiong-hu, stating that the branch manager is waiting for all of them. He also calls Xianwu, telling him to follow. Xianwu, still catching his breath, asks if that is indeed Chansu, the team leader, and begins to think that since everyone from the so-called Merlin team is gathering, something important must be happening. Once everyone is assembled, Chansu says they received a request from Gwangmyeon to protect the barrier. Xianwu comments that apparently she fainted again. Chansu confirms it. Chansu also says that before she can heal, they were asked to act as bait. Xianghu asks if it's going to be like this again. He adds that even though he hasn't done it alone, he thinks he has heard several similar stories recently. Chansu says that it seems she is overexerting herself. There's even a rumor that she can't sleep properly. The branch manager, Busik, just listens to this conversation without saying anything. Xianghu asks them to tell them to protect their own lands alone. After all, what is their team? A bunch of their slaves? The manager decides to speak up, saying that they are all desperate, as can be seen from the conditions they were given. Xianghu asks what the conditions were. Busik then turns and says that they promised citizenship as a reward for completing this mission. Xianghu asks if it's really citizenship. Chansu also wonders, saying that they must be in a hurry, as they are willing to offer their much-famed citizenship as a reward. Xianwu, without a second thought, just says that he will go. Chansu says that's fine, that they will all do their best this time. Unjan raises her hand and says that if she can visit the so famous of the stories, then she accepts the mission too. Xianghu teases her, asking if that was the real reason she wanted to go. Unjan tells him to shut up since he is just an idiot. Xianghu also raises his hand, saying that if citizenship is involved, then the story changes completely. For that reason, he will go too. Chansu says that's great, and asks everyone to prepare for the mission and that they will meet tomorrow at the southwest exit gate at 6 o'clock in the morning. Seonwoo nods his head, saying that it's okay. Then night falls. Seonwoo is in his bed with a notebook. He is making some notes like, one of the largest cities rebuilt after the destruction of the world, Gwangmyeong. Seonwoo thinks that on the edge of the city there is a large energy field that prevents all demonic beasts from easily entering the city. Still on the subject of the barrier, which is called the Central Energy Field, it has been maintained for the past few decades by a high-class metahuman named Beatrice. However, she has had some health issues that have affected the barrier unilaterally. Now, the problem is ensuring that everyone can fulfill their duties in the time it takes for her to heal and return. Essentially, if an S-class demonic beast attacks the city while she is recuperating, even though the majority of the population are metahumans, they would all be defeated instantly by these S-class beasts. As a result, the city decided to change tactics after such tragic experiences. Unashamedly, they asked for help from the people of the desert, who they do not like, but it was necessary to save the populace. All four are now gathered in the desert. Chansu asks Seonwoo if they will use the same route as before, or a similar one. Seonwoo replies that no, since the environment has changed a bit this time. Seonwoo also mentions that he has heard rumors that a rank 5 demonic beast, the bearded gargoyle, is in that area. Chansu is concerned about facing a rank 5 demonic beast, as even one of that level is difficult for him, who is strong. Seonwoo says it's plausible, and he will take into account that the leader here is a 10th class physical reinforcement metahuman. With that said, Seonwoo says he will plan a route to avoid all demonic beasts stronger than 11th class beasts. He then begins to draw a map, tracing a path they will follow. He plans everything but says that on this path, they will encounter a lot of 15th class demonic beetles. Chansu says it's not a problem, as he can handle all of them alone. Seonwoo acknowledges and says they should follow the path he just traced. They then follow the path through the desert, which, incidentally, is experiencing strong winds raising a lot of dust. Along the way, Seonwoo notices something ahead. He raises his hand, asking everyone to stop for a moment. Xianghu asks what it is this time. Seonwoo turns around and asks him to be quiet. He then kneels and notices that there is a footprint in that direction. Unjan approaches and asks what it is. If it's a footprint of a demonic beast? Seonwoo turns to her and says he needs to check something and asks if she could use the enhanced vision she has. Unjan says she can use it and then activates her ability, asking in which direction she should look. Seonwoo points in a direction, saying it's there where the sand clouds are more violent. Unjan, with her ability activated, looks attentively to where Seonwoo asked. She says she looked deeply into the direction Seonwoo requested, but didn't find anything unusual in that region. Xianghu approaches, asking what it is and to stop making it suspenseful. Seonwoo looks to the side and says it's probably a horde of hobgoblins. Everyone is surprised by this information. Seonwoo further says that this horde passed by there in the last 15 minutes. Seonwoo mentions that hobgoblins have an excellent sense of smell, and even though they have gone in another direction, they are probably already coming back after smelling all four of them. Unjan then activates her ability again and is surprised, saying that Seonwoo was really telling the truth, and that the hobgoblins were coming towards them. Xianghu, now worried, says that he really didn't lie to the team. Chansu says he knew he could trust Xianwu as the team's guide. Xianwu says they need to limit the return path of the hobgoblins, since 2 of the team are not good for combat. Chansu asks if there's anything nearby that can help. Xianwu responds that nearby, to the north, there's a bridge. Xianwu turns and catches Xianghu's attention. He asks what it is. Xianwu then pleads for him to carry the hunter Yunjian. Everyone starts running, saying they need to be quick to reach the bridge. Everyone then begins to run towards the bridge, following Xianwu's instructions. Xianghu, feeling nervous, asks when Xianwu learned to give orders like that. Yunjian teases the situation, saying that Xianwu looks very cool giving those orders and tells Xianghu to pick up the pace so they don't fall behind. Xianghu, who is carrying Yunjian on his back, responds that he understood and calls her Little Lady. As the group is running, they can see the horde of hobgoblins through the dust. It was a relatively large horde running madly towards the group. The hobgoblins were small despite their ugly appearance and sinister bloodlust. Everyone in the team is running at full speed. Xianwu looks back to assess the situation they are in. He realizes that indeed the monsters are getting closer and closer. These hobgoblins are 18th class demonic beasts. Xianwu starts to think that a hobgoblin is weaker than the bronze spider, which is a 19th class beast, but the teamwork of the hobgoblins is the problem when they gather in a huge group. For this reason, the hobgoblins are categorized in the 18th class, above the bronze spider. While everyone is fleeing at full speed, Xianwu thinks that in open areas, it's even worse to face hobgoblins, even for metahumans. Xianwu looks at Yunjian and Xianghu and thinks that currently, they have 2 17th class metahumans present, but only one of the 2 has combat abilities. Xianwu now looks at Captain Chansu, considering that he is another metahuman, but a 10th class, also with combat capabilities. So, this plan, despite being a bit risky, is not too bad. Xianwu spots the bridge and thinks about its width of approximately 4 meters, with a height of probably 6 meters. He further thinks that if the hunter Xianghu and leader Chansu stay right in the middle of the bridge, they could contain the horde with some ease. Xianwu, pondering all this, imagines it will be a relatively easy victory, although it is all still theoretical. He becomes a bit more serious and considers the 2 variables in the battle. The entire team runs at full speed towards the bridge and stops upon reaching the middle. Xianwu asks leader Chansu and hunter Xianghu to stand exactly in the middle of the bridge to face the horde of hobgoblins. The whole team agrees with the plan, while Xianwu says he will be responsible for guarding the rear. Yunjian, who wasn't instructed on what to do, asks what she should do. Xianwu begins to consider the first variable involving Yunjian. Basically, whenever a battle starts, Yunjian becomes just a heavy burden in the form of a metahuman, as she is not a combatant, but needs to be protected by the others in the same way. Xianwu, looking at her, says that protecting her greatly disrupts the concentration of metahumans who are in combat. So to keep her from being a nuisance, they need to keep her out of the battle to avoid having to save her. Xianwu, thinking about all this, asks hunter Yunjian to stay behind him. She says that's fine. Meanwhile, leader Chansu and hunter Xianghu draw their weapons for combat. Now Xianwu begins to consider the second variable that could occur. He thinks that a skill class is just a number. He then looks at leader Chansu and imagines that he is famous even in the 17th district. But Xianwu still needs to work better with him to understand his combat abilities, as Xianwu has never witnessed them with his own eyes. Now Xianwu looks at Xianghu, considering that both he and Yunjian joined Team Merlin very recently, so their support abilities are completely unknown. The goblins appear far away while everyone is prepared for combat, and Xianwu thinks he cannot relax until he understands the situation to overcome these variables. The hobgoblins continue frenetically towards the bridge. Chansu begins to gather a massive energy in his body and unleashes an attack using his metahuman abilities. His weapons cut heads towards all the hobgoblins. Right off the bat, Chansu's ability cuts 3 hobgoblins in half with extreme ease. Chansu then gets serious, his eyes brimming with power. He jumps shouting towards the horde and strikes again, beheading 3 more hobgoblins. Xianghu also wastes no time. He uses his ability to enhance his physique and effortlessly slices a hobgoblin in half. He sees the hobgoblin split in 2 and is relieved it was easier than he imagined. Xianghu starts shouting as he runs towards the horde, and without wasting time, he cuts several hobgoblins in half with a single sword stroke. Several hobgoblins gather, but Xianghu's attack doesn't stop. He continues slicing all in front of him in half with his enhanced physical ability. Xianwu is surprised to see how easily they are handling it, and wonders if the second variable was an unnecessary concern. Chansu and Xianghu continue frantically, killing all the hobgoblins that come close to them, while Xianwu and Unjan watch the mass slaughter from afar. The two don't notice a hobgoblin approaching them. The hobgoblin grabs the hunter Unjan by the hair, while Xianwu screams for her, desperate, as he didn't see the hobgoblin approaching. Xianghu in the midst of battle asks what's happening. Xianwu tells him to focus on the battle and not to look back where they were. Xianghu goes back to fighting the hobgoblins, though irritated at receiving orders from Xianwu. The hobgoblin holding Unjan's hair prepares to attack her. She starts to panic while Xianwu reaches for her belly, grabs her by the waist, and pulls before the hobgoblin's strike can hit her. The blow, heading towards the head, only hits the tips of Unjan's hair. The hobgoblin put so much force into the attack that his axe went straight into the ground. Xianwu and Unjan roll away from the momentum he gathered to pull her from the hobgoblin's attack. They both stand up, as Xianwu thinks that he can't count on the combatants' help in that situation, as they are fighting against a huge horde of hobgoblins. He thinks he will have to handle that situation himself. The lone hobgoblin begins to run towards them. Xianwu, shouting, strikes trying to hit the hobgoblin's head. The hobgoblin laughs as Xianwu misses the strike. However, Xianwu, crouched, strikes from below upwards, hitting the hobgoblin's forehead and knocking the helmet off. The hobgoblin is enraged to receive that blow even though it only knocked off his helmet. He then prepares his axe to embed it in Xianwu's head. The hobgoblin attacks with all his strength, but Xianwu manages to throw himself back, making the hobgoblin miss the attack. Xianwu tries to get up, still worried about the situation he got himself into, but before he could do anything, the hobgoblin was already on top of him to attack him again. Xianwu can't believe he acted so quickly. At that moment, a knife is plunged into the hobgoblin's back. It was the hunter Unjan, who, even breathless, was trying to do something to help. The hobgoblin can't believe the audacity of this woman. He turns around screaming at her. Xianwu is worried about the situation and starts shouting the name of the hunter Unjan. Xianwu runs toward the hobgoblin. Meanwhile, the hobgoblin, with his eyes closed, is screaming frantically. However, his head is cut off by a single strike from Xianwu. The hobgoblin's body falls to the ground while his head flies away. The two kneel down as Chansu and Xianghu run towards them to see if they are okay. Xianwu, still kneeling, is worried that the worst almost happened. He looks at his hands and realizes he can't stop trembling. Xianghu approaches and tells Xianwu that he should have been defending Unjan. Unjan then yells at Xianghu, saying that all this happened because he failed to kill one of the hobgoblins. Xianghu regrets, saying he hadn't imagined that one of the hobgoblins would crawl back up. Xianghu, with his head lowered, says he wanted to help at that moment. But the fool, Xianwu. Before he can finish his sentence, Chansu interjects, stating that it's not quite like that Xianwu did the right thing by telling him to focus on the fight, since it would have been very difficult to focus on the rear if he hadn't concentrated on the fight. Chansu says that anyway, everything turned out fine in the end and takes the opportunity to ask if Xianwu is okay. Xianwu, with his head down, says he's fine. But in his thoughts, he imagines that in addition to failing to protect Unjan, he also ended up needing help. And that is terrible. Chansu calls Xianwu's attention, saying, isn't it good for them to leave that place soon? After all, there might be more demonic beasts nearby. Xianwu replies that everyone can relax, since there were plenty of lower-class beasts around, which means there are no stronger beasts nearby. Otherwise, the lower-class ones wouldn't stay close. The four start to leave the area after defeating all the hobgoblins. They continue on their way through the desert. Xianwu suddenly pauses. Xianghu calls Xianwu's attention, asking if they have arrived at the place. Xianwu suddenly starts running without further ado. Xianghu calls him a bastard, saying that once again he is leaving him in the lurch, even though he is asking something important. Xianwu jumps onto a rock and then asks everyone to climb up where he climbed. Unjan begins to climb while Xianghu is annoyed for still being in the dark. Everyone then climbs to the place Xianwu asked, and Xianghu asks why it took so long. Unjan is surprised by what she is seeing, saying that they finally arrived. Xianghu is also surprised to see it. They were in front of the barrier, so Xianwu informs them that they finally arrived at the Guangmyong capsule. They approach that huge pink barrier. Unjan is amazed at the size of that capsule. She then gets closer and extends her hand towards the barrier. She gets a bit closer, being careful not to touch since she does not know what might happen. At this moment, someone grabs her hand and pushes it towards the barrier. It was Xianghu, scaring her, as if the barrier would give some protective shock or something. Xianghu starts laughing at her face, asking if she got any shock or something. Unjan, nervous, complains, saying that he is crazy. What if she had had a heart attack there because of the scare? Chansu asks if she felt anything touching the barrier, right? Unjan replies that she really felt nothing and that is strange. Xianghu also reaches his hands out to test that protective barrier. He comes back and says that it seems the barrier only blocks demonic beasts. Chansu comments that this barrier has been protecting this place for more than 10 years, so it is extremely reliable. Everyone looking at the barrier says it's time to cross it. The team crosses one by one while they look around to see if there are any demonic beasts approaching. As they enter the barrier, they encounter a man standing looking in their direction. This man with a beret asks everyone to stop and please identify themselves. Chansu takes out his document and says that he is the leader of Team Merlin from Node 17. Chansu hands his document to the man with the beret to check. The man uses a device to verify that the document is not fake. Upon verifying that it is true, the man with the beret asks everyone there to take one of those bracelets and put them on their arms. Xianghu asks what this crazy thing is. Unjan observes the bracelet on her wrist and says it's very beautiful, resembling the central bracelet. The man with the beret notifies them that the barrier defense operation will begin tomorrow around 7 o'clock in the morning and also informs them that temporary lodging will be assigned at the training camp. The man also warns that after sunset, no one is authorized to leave the lodging, as the city's citizens get anxious when desert people roam the city at night. Chansu and Xianwu quietly observe these instructions. Xianghu and Unjan ask what happens if someone decides to roam around after the notified time. The man in the beret informs them that they will lose a hand as a consequence. Additionally, if anyone tries to forcibly remove the bracelet, it will explode, so there's no need to discuss the extent of that damage. The man simply asks everyone to be very careful while inside. Xianghu and Unjan are desperate upon hearing this, as they are essentially carrying a time bomb on their wrists that could explode at any moment. The man in the beret, who is a guard at the location, asks everyone to enter the city. Upon entering, Xianwu ponders that the purpose of the place is merely to block demonic beasts, so the thin energy barrier should theoretically be sufficient. However, the use of such a thick protective barrier also indicates that their goal is to bar people from the desert, not just the demonic beasts. Midway, Unjan exclaims "wow" at what she just saw. She's amazed by what she sees and continues to exclaim "wow" repeatedly. Xianghu also finds it incredible. Chansu turns and says that, after all, the two have never been there, and hence are so amazed. They were in front of various buildings. It was the first time they had been in a city. They see a couple sitting, having coffee. They also see an older gentleman calmly reading a newspaper on a bench. Unjian is completely impressed with the place, saying they've barely entered. But the difference from their reality is immense. Chansu comments that he thought the same thing when he first visited that city. Chansu takes the opportunity to ask Xianwu if he intends to head to the training camp at that moment. Xianwu replies that no, he plans to see if there is anything useful in that city. Chansu then says that's fine, and they will meet at the lodging. Xianghu teases, saying not to come back missing a hand for disobeying the rules. Unjan is annoyed by the provocation. Xianwu walks calmly through the city, imagining that it is as peaceful as ever, and it's hard to believe that outside there, the reality is different. Xianwu stops in front of a store. He then opens the store door. A young woman is rushing, carrying some boxes. She drops her badge but cannot see her path because the height of the boxes is blocking her vision. Xianwu watches the badge fall to the ground. He bends down to pick it up and return it to the young woman, but when he stands up to return it, he realizes she is no longer there. She was running at full speed, apparently in a hurry. Xianwu looks back, not understanding why the young woman was running so fast. Xianwu then picks up some accessories in the store and takes them to the counter. The store owner asks if he's really picking those glasses and asks what he's buying them for. Xianwu replies that he needs them for something specific and asks how much everything will cost. The store owner asks if he will pay using a core. Xianwu confirms that this will be his method of payment. Xianwu spots an interesting item in the display window. He looks to the owner and asks what it is. The owner looks down and asks if he is inquiring about the item in the display. Xianwu confirms. The owner explains that it is a magic grenade. It basically works like a flash grenade. Just pull the pin, throw it, and it will explode after being launched. Xianwu finds it strange and asks if he can sell weapons to civilians. The owner explains that the grenade is not considered a weapon as it is not lethal. For instance, if the grenade explodes in front of him, all it will do is temporarily blind him. Xianwu, still puzzled, asks where such a grenade is being used. The owner says that all depends on the person using it, and if the shops are still manufacturing them, then it means there are buyers. Suddenly, the young woman who had passed by with the boxes returns, shouting, drawing the attention of the store owner. She, Completely desperate, asks if he has seen her access card, which she cannot find. The store owner responds that unfortunately, he doesn't remember seeing it anywhere. Xianwu puts his hand in his pocket and then pulls out her access card, asking if this was what she was looking for. The woman immediately grabs Xianwu's arm, thanking him for keeping it when he found it. She is completely embarrassed as she holds the access card, wondering how she could have lost something so important. The woman notices the jacket Xianwu is wearing and asks if he is from the desert, and if he is a metahuman, then they can provide some assistance. Xianwu responds that he is not a metahuman. Surprised, she grabs Xianwu's arm, asking if he really isn't a metahuman. She continues fiddling with Xianwu's arm, asking if he really isn't strong, or has enhanced vision, or perhaps enhanced hearing. Xianwu asks her to calm down. Concerned about the woman's excitement, Xianwu pulls his arm away from her grasp. The woman panics upon realizing that she was being intrusive and apologizes, saying she was so focused that she acted that way. Xianwu simply replies that, as he said, he is not a metahuman. The woman with glasses says it's strange, as she feels an internal alert suggesting that Xianwu is indeed a metahuman. Xianwu is worried, not understanding what she means by that. The woman, also confused, says that she really doesn't feel any abilities coming from him, but it still feels very strange. Xianwu remains confused. The woman then takes out her cell phone and says she is clumsy, but that she will apologize first. Xianwu says it's okay. She answers the cell phone and runs off while saying she is listening to her team leader. Xianwu doesn't understand what's going through the woman's mind, thinking she might have ADHD. Xianwu adjusts his glove while puzzled by what the woman said about being a metahuman, despite him having no idea what that entails. Time passes, and Xianwu is now in his lodging, holding the magic grenade. He reflects on the woman saying that he is a metahuman. He thinks it would be just his luck to be a metahuman, and not know it. He continues pondering, stating that what he most wishes for is to be a metahuman, and that he has already investigated all possible signs of awakening, and even methods to become one. All this to come to the conclusion that he cannot become a metahuman. Xianwu holds the grenade while thinking he had already accepted his reality, and because of that, accepted starting work as a guide. However, for that woman to come and mention something about him appearing to have metahuman powers right after he accepted he isn't one is strange. He then turns over in bed, saying it's frustrating as it's making him restless at the slightest possibility of him actually being a metahuman. Yet, he wonders what a city researcher could know about to be talking nonsense. He thinks he needs to stop thinking about this, as it could affect his performance the next day. The next day arrives, and various metahumans are gathered. The city's loudspeaker announces that there are 10 seconds left before the barrier deactivates. The metahumans are ready for action, while the countdown is at 7. Other metahumans decide their strategies, while the countdown is at 5. Xianwu is ready for action, and the countdown is at 1. The countdown then reaches 0, and the barrier begins to shake. The loudspeaker then announces that the barrier defense operation is officially starting, and everyone runs towards the desert as the barrier is dismantled. Everyone starts running frantically towards the vast desert, shouting, "Go, go, go!" One of the metahumans is already out of breath after running a bit. He is startled soon after running a bit. Several demonic insects are flying towards these people. Chansu tells everyone to look forward and keep running non-stop. Xianwu suggests that they should run in the opposite direction. They then head in the opposite direction from the rest of the metahumans who were facing the demonic insects. One of the metahumans runs back to the city declaring he quits and asks to be let in. The security personnel block his passage. The metahuman asks what they are doing blocking the way. At that moment, he receives a blow to the chest with a security baton. He falls to his knees, while another metahuman who is also returning out of fear has his head cut off by another guard as they approach the gate. Seeing this, Unjian is frightened and asks what is happening. She asks leader Chansu if he saw what happened at the city gate. Chansu just asks her to stop talking and not to look back again. Xianwu, while still running, thinks that they didn't call these people because the city's hunters are weak, but rather to use them as bait. The metahumans are devoured one by the demonic insects. Xianwu, witnessing this scene, thinks that the city just needed some bait to attract the attention of the beasts while the barrier is down. Unjan then activates her ability and says that many monsters are coming from the northwest. Xianwu pays attention to what she said and then asks everyone to wait. When they stop, Xianghu asks what's happening. Xianwu explains that, according to predictions, it should be a group of rank 9 raptors. Xianghu, worried, asks leader Chansu how they are going to face this. Xianwu interjects, explaining that just one raptor alone is rank 9. He also says that just one of them could completely destroy an entire group of hobgoblins, while they gain nothing by facing a whole group of them. Unjan, already feeling ill and worried about the situation they are in, asks what they are going to do. Xianwu then takes out the masks he bought at the store and hands them to everyone. He goes into the pond and says they will hide their bodies inside while breathing using the snorkel masks. He then demonstrates how everyone should hide their bodies while breathing underwater. Everyone gets into the water, while Unjan comments that the lake is disgusting. Everyone then remains submerged, hiding from the raptors. Xianwu reflects that the powerful metahumans of the city might manage to handle the raptors, but he couldn't say the same for the mercenaries. Xianwu just stays submerged while the horror unfolds outside the pond. The raptors begin killing everyone mercilessly. Unjan continues breathing calmly so as not to come out of the pond. The raptors outside continue devouring any mercenaries they find. Xianghu also keeps his breathing calm to avoid needing to surface. On land, the raptors are conducting a complete massacre. Chansu is worried, wondering how long they might need to stay there without knowing what is happening. After everything seems to calm down, Xianwu begins to slightly raise his head to understand what is happening. He then stands up and realizes that the battle has ended. He looks to the land and sees all those dead mercenaries. He had already imagined that they had no chance from the beginning. Everyone in the team then stands up after Xianwu says they can come out of the water. Xianghu asks if the raptors passed by there. Xianwu answers yes, and probably all the hunters must be dead, having encountered the raptors along the way. Xianwu suggests that they follow the trail of the raptors, since they are very aggressive beasts, so there should be no other type of beast left in their path. They then follow the trail of bodies, while Xianwu says they need to find a place to hide. Night falls, and the moon is shining brightly. The four decide to camp in an abandoned building. Xianghu worriedly asks when all this will finally end. Chansu responds that he has no idea. He only bases it on the last time, which took a few hours, so this time might be similar. Unfortunately, all there can do nothing but wait for the signal. Xianwu continues to ponder the situation when suddenly he hears a sound and is startled. Xianwu stands up, and Xianghu asks what made him get up so abruptly. Meanwhile, Unjan, suspecting that it's nothing good, reaches for the lantern and turns it off to avoid drawing attention. Xianghu, not understanding anything, just reaches for his sword and remains alert to whatever might happen. Chansu grabs his weapon and prepares as well. He approaches Xianwu and asks if he sees something that the others do not. Xianwu replies that it's not exactly that, but he senses something suspicious. Everyone looks outside the abandoned building, not understanding what is happening. Chansu, concerned, says that it seems calm outside, so he does not understand Xianwu's concern. Xianwu replies that they should remain alert a little longer. They continue to look outside, but the place still seems calm. However, Xianwu insists that something is indeed out there. He points out, saying he does see something outside. Chansu, still concerned, says he sees nothing. However, shortly after, he sharpens his focus and notices two eyes looking at them from outside. He then shouts for Xianwu and Unjan to get behind him. Xianghu, with his sword in hand, becomes worried that the situation will worsen. The demonic beast then begins to enter the abandoned building. Xianwu can't believe what he is seeing. "They are facing the Black Mantis!" Xianwu yells, extremely concerned about the situation they are in, as they are facing a Black Mantis. Chansu, not quite understanding the problem, asks why he is shocked by this Black Mantis. Xianwu, worried, says he doesn't have many details about this demonic beast, only that it is a flying beast that looks like a mantis and is about 2 meters tall and 4 meters long. Xianwu says that's all he knows, and to make matters worse, he knows none of its weaknesses, as there are no records about it. Xianwu, extremely worried, says there is no way they can face that beast without information on its weaknesses, so they must find a way to retreat. Chansu asks if it wouldn't be better to confront it, and thus discover its weaknesses. Xianwu explains that it's not that simple, as saying it is an unknown class doesn't mean they are weak, and to think about it, this mantis is in the territory of the raptors. Xianwu says, from this reasoning, this means they are even stronger predators than the raptors, meaning it is at least rank 9. They say this looking at the huge demonic beast in front of them. The Black Mantis, without wasting time, leaps and begins to fly around the abandoned building. Everyone starts screaming, saying the monster has finally decided to attack. Chansu tells everyone to be careful of all directions. He also tells everyone to get into combat formation. Xianghu starts to get worried, as it was very dark and hard to tell from where the Black Mantis would attack. Chansu tells him to keep calm, otherwise he would be caught off guard by the monster. Xianwu immediately yells for Unjan to use her ability. She then activates the power in her eyes to try to locate the monster in the darkness. She looks one way and sees nothing. She looks another way, and also does not see the monster, and starts to ask where the black mantis is. Xianwu asks if she managed to locate it. She responds that no, she has looked in all directions, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere. Xianghu is worried about this, as they can't predict where the monster will attack from. Everyone remains in formation, even though they can't locate the black mantis. Chansu also starts to get worried as the situation doesn't improve at all. Unjan, still using her ability to try to locate the black mantis, almost begs to find it soon before the worst happens. Chansu begins to hear a sound coming from one direction. Xianghu also starts to hear that sound, but from another direction. Xianwu realizes that the sound is the black mantis approaching, and they will likely need to locate it by sound since the place is pitch dark. He begins to think that everyone needs to stay calm in order to react effectively. In the midst of these thoughts, the black mantis gets close to him. Xianwu senses its presence and quickly turns around, cursing because he didn't notice the black mantis approaching so closely. The black mantis immediately launches an attack trying to decapitate Xianwu, but he manages to defend himself at the last moment using his sword. The force of the black mantis's attack throws Xianwu far away. Unjan, concerned, screams for Xianwu. Xianwu starts to worry because he can't find his sword in the darkness. Unjan is using her ability in the direction of Xianwu. She notices something and yells to Xianwu that the black mantis is right above him. He looks up, but the attack is already coming towards him. Leader Chansu, concerned, is running towards him, hoping he can make it in time. Xianwu just closes his eyes, realizing there is nothing he can do against the attack since he has lost his sword. He then opens one eye, not understanding why the attack didn't hit him. He sees that Leader Chansu has blocked the claw of the black mantis. Chansu then tells everyone to leave the place and leave everything to him. Chansu counterattacks the black mantis, taking advantage of the opening from the block. Xianwu uses the opportunity to run away from them. He regroups with the others. Unjan asks about their current situation. Xianwu replies that they are at a complete disadvantage because of the darkness. Xianghu complains that the whole situation is terrible and that having even a little light would help greatly. Xianwu digs into his pocket looking for something while shouting the leader's name. He pulls out a bright crystal from his pocket and throws it towards the leader, asking him to use it. The bright crystal lands at the leader's feet, and as the light was very strong, Chansu could see the black mantis hidden above him. He taunts, saying it had been arrogantly sitting there all this time. He tells the black mantis to come down a bit so they can play. Xianghu starts running towards the leader, saying he will also help in the battle. Chansu yells for him to stop, that one should not run recklessly in such a way. Xianghu then stops midway while watching the leader looking up. Chansu stands before the giant black mantis as he declares that the monster is his to fight. Xianwu, worried about the whole situation, thinks that Chansu's decision was wise. As if more than one person wields a sword in such a confined, visionless space, they could accidentally injure each other, and that would only cause more harm. Xianwu starts to watch the black mantis and thinks that the problems are enormous, as leader Chansu already struggles against a raptor. So imagine against that black mantis. Xianwu looks at the leader Chansu while imagining that the black mantis is on another level, since it was much stronger than a raptor. The situation was not good. Xianwu, still worried, thinks that the worst part isn't even this. The worst is that, apparently, this black mantis is also quite intelligent, since it lures its prey into the dark and disorients them with sound while hiding its location. Xianwu just wants to know how Chansu plans to face it. At that moment, Chansu is gathering more and more energy, while trying to stay motivated, as the enemy is extremely powerful. Xianwu, Xianghu, and Unjian are impressed to see Captain Chansu boosting his status to the max with his ability. The black mantis is also ready for battle, emitting a powerful aura. The mantis charges forward, and Chansu moves towards it, shouting that he will put an end to that insect once and for all. The two exchange blows, causing an enormous noise. The mantis retreats a bit because of the blow and decides to land on the ground. The two stare at each other for a moment. Chansu crouches slightly and then sprints at full speed towards the mantis. He continues confidently in his strength, now that he is at his maximum status because of his ability. He then leaps towards the mantis, shouting that this time it will die. He strikes with all his strength, but it is blocked by the mantis's leg. Chansu, already clenching his teeth, worried about the situation, can't believe how easily the black mantis blocked a blow with maximum status. The mantis wastes no time and counterattacks leader Chansu. Chansu manages to block the attack, but with great difficulty. He is sweating heavily, imagining that if he is pushed a bit more, he will undoubtedly lose. The black mantis, which is biting the captain's weapon, takes the opportunity to strike with its leg, hitting Chansu's foot without him noticing. Chansu starts screaming in pain as his foot is pierced. Xianghu, unable to watch any longer, yells at the damn black mantis and charges at it. The black mantis notices him approaching. Xianghu doesn't waste any time and delivers a strong attack on one of the mantis's legs. The black mantis just raises one of its legs and strikes Xianghu, throwing him towards the wall of the abandoned building, causing a huge explosion with the impact. He groans in pain as he didn't expect to receive such a strong blow. Chansu, Xianwu, and Unjan can't believe that Xianghu was defeated so easily. Now they are all extremely worried. The black mantis removes its leg, which was embedded in Chansu's foot, raises it high to deliver another attack, and strikes with great speed, not giving Chansu time to react. His eyes widen as he receives the attack, while blood spurts everywhere. The attack of the black mantis hits Chansu squarely in the shoulder. Chansu can only scream in pain as his body is pierced. The black mantis continues to stare at the captain, while the captain can only tremble in pain. He looks back with little strength left and can only imagine how badly he is getting beaten, since he can't land a single blow on that monster. The black mantis raises its claw, which is stuck in the captain's body, and then throws him far away, causing Chansu to hit the wall of that abandoned building with full force. Chansu just falls to the ground after the impact, unable to move. The target of the black mantis now changes. It has its eyes on Xianwu and Unjan, since for it only the two of them remain alive. Xianwu draws his sword, imagining that now it's their turn. Unjan just kneels on the ground, completely terrified of that monster. Xianwu, extremely worried about the situation, imagines that this mantis is at least of rank 8. Actually, in the worst case, it could even be rank 5, so they definitely have no way out. Xianwu, his hand trembling as he holds his sword, imagines that the primary weapons of the mantis are its forelegs, which apparently are stronger than Damascus steel, and that his sword would likely break before even reaching it. Xianwu continues to stare at the monster, wondering where its weak spot could be. Could it be the head, the neck, or even the chest? Xianwu couldn't think straight at that moment. The mantis begins to move. It slowly walks towards Xianwu until it finally gets close to him. The mantis stood there, all imposing, while Xianwu could only imagine how intimidating this monster is. However, at that moment, Xianwu observes something different. He notices a part that connects between the legs and the torso, now that the mantis is standing upright. Xianwu, without wasting time, runs towards this spot on the monster, imagining that it must be its weak point. He then attacks with all his strength exactly at the spot he spotted, but the impact doesn't even scratch the monster. Xianwu's sword trembles from the impact, and he doesn't understand why he didn't finish off the monster, since he's sure he hit the right spot. Before Xianwu can think of anything else, the mantis strikes a powerful blow with its leg, throwing Xianwu to the other side of the abandoned building. Even as Xianwu is being dragged across the ground by the impact, the mantis still flies towards him. Xianwu finally stops being dragged across the floor, and before he can even catch his breath, the mantis plunges its 2 claws into the ground next to Xianwu's head. Seeing those huge claws next to his head, he can only tremble at that moment. The mantis lowers its head towards Xianwu's head, and all he can do now is tremble. The monster gets very close, ready to devour. All Xianwu can think about is whether he is crying or if they are laughing at him. And how is this monster's intelligence so high? The monster is very close to him. Xianwu could no longer do anything at that moment, except close his eyes while imagining that he had let his guard down, although even Captain Chansu couldn't do anything against such a monster. So what chances did he have? The monster is just a few inches from devouring him, while all Xianwu can think about is that this time he will really die. Suddenly, a very loud sound is emitted nearby. That immediately catches the mantis's attention. The monster lifts its entire body right after the sound is emitted. Xianwu watches, wondering if the monster is reacting to the noise. The mantis begins to look around and then lifts its legs off the ground, looks in one direction, and then flies away at full speed, while Xianwu can't believe that the monster was actually fleeing. Xianwu remains lying down, wondering what the hell just happened. He takes a deep breath, trying to stand up, and then lies down again, grateful for being alive, as that was tremendous luck. Unjan runs towards him, asking if he's okay. Xianwu, his entire body trembling, wonders why the monster left that way. Was it because it found Xianwu too weak and didn't want to waste time with trash? Xianwu thinks deeper about the whistle he just heard and finds it strange, as he had never heard such a strange noise before. He still wonders if by chance it is a signal among demonic beasts. Eunjeon shakes his arm, asking him to pull himself together, as he doesn't seem to be doing well. Seonwoo, without much reaction at that moment, says it's obvious that he forgot something. He then, looking at Eunjeon's bracelet, which also had a light on, imagines he forgot the defense barrier plan. Seonwoo looks at his own bracelet and notices that it is also shining brightly. He takes the opportunity to ask Eunjeon if she knows how long the bracelets have been glowing. She responds that she was so scared she didn't even notice they were glowing. Seonwoo says that was the signal that the barrier had started working again, so they need to return to the city immediately. Eunjeon agrees and asks about the situation with Captain Chansu and Seonghoo, since they seem to have been quite injured. Chansu was completely unconscious, in addition to losing a lot of blood. Seonghoo, however, was awake, but complaining a lot about the pain from the blow he received. Seonwoo is relieved, as the mantis's attack hit the leader's shoulder instead of his heart, while he merely passed out. Seonwoo then heads towards the captain and puts him on his back. Seonwoo says they need to take the captain to the healers immediately and asks Eunjeon to please help Seonghoo get up, as they need to leave there immediately. Eunjeon, still trembling with fear, agrees. Seonwoo, with the captain on his back, urges them to hurry, as the walk would be long. All Seonwoo can think about at that moment is how lucky they are to get out of there alive, but now it's all a matter of time, as they still need to get to the barrier safely. Inside the barrier, a count of the dead is taking place, with the count already at 55. The guard in the beret continues counting all the deaths, now reaching 57. Another guard approaches and asks how many dead have been counted. The guard responsible for this replies that there have been 58 dead, 17 injured, and 11 missing out of a total of 86 participants. The guard, upon hearing this, says that it wasn't as bad as he had imagined it would be. At this moment, the guard doing the counting spots something. They observe something coming from the barrier and ask what it is. Some people were coming towards them. It was Seonwoo carrying the captain on his back, while Eunjeon helped Seonghoo walk. Inside the hospital, a man with glasses approaches a room. From outside, he can hear someone screaming, asking if the person will continue complaining about the food there. It was Eunjeon, furious with Captain Chansu because he was not eating properly. She explains that he needs to eat everything to recover well. Chansu just moans. Eunjeon, to intimidate, asks if he wants to try her punch instead of the food. She also says she won't go easy even though he is the captain of the team. Seonwoo and Seonghoo, listening, imagine they are lucky not to be the captain of that team. At this moment, someone knocks on the door where the team was. The man enters while Seonghoo asks who he is. The man enters while asking for permission. The man goes towards Captain Chansu while introducing himself, saying his name is Jin Song, and he is the director of the team that manages that city. Chansu is unsure what to say to him upon hearing this. However, he decides to introduce himself, saying his name is Chansu. The two greet each other by shaking hands. Jin Song is pleased while saying that apparently the captain has recovered well and says that his healing abilities aren't that bad. Chansu, still a bit pale, asks what the city administration team is doing there in the hospital. Jin Seong says he can't answer that there at that moment. Everyone listening to the conversation realizes that they were only getting in the way. Chansu then asks everyone from his team to please give them space to talk for a moment. Everyone decides to walk away, wondering what will happen inside. Seonghoo imagines that the conversation will be about the reward that the team will receive. Eunjeon says it would be very nice if they invited them to live in that city. Everyone continues walking, while Seonghoo still tells everyone to look at his body, since he clearly has the appearance of a wealthy person, and he has no idea how he survived in that sickly desert. Seonwoo, at that moment, can only imagine how suspicious it is that the associate director of the city administration team visits them personally and still takes care of someone who came from the desert. That was very strange. The director continues his conversation with Chansu, saying that it's a real miracle that everyone survived. Chansu says it was all thanks to the team's guide. The director asks if this guide is the non-meta person. Chansu confirms it's him and comments that he can't believe what he was capable of. The director asks if he's serious. He adjusts his glasses while saying that it's great that everyone survived and even managed to return to the city. However, now they are in trouble since he didn't expect this to happen. He says this with a serious face. Chansu gets scared hearing this, wondering what he meant by that. After their conversation, the team returns to the room and a chair is thrown aside. Seonghoo is furious after Chansu explains how the conversation with the director went. Seonwoo and Eunjeon remain silent, watching from a distance after also hearing what the captain said. Chansu pleads with him to calm down. Seonghoo, irritated, asks how he can calm down when that damn director only qualifies 2 people from the team. He looks at those two people and asks why the director qualified Xianwu and Unjan, of all people. Chansu explains that it was the administration team's decision, and they can't do anything about it. Xianghu gets even more stressed, saying that all of it is a lie, because what do those idiots know about what happened? Angrily, he also says that if the captain wants to give up his own rank, then he's free to do so, but who is obviously the strongest after him? Xianghu can't imagine anyone other than himself. Then, still nervous, he points a finger at Xianwu and asks how a guy who isn't even a meta-human is receiving a qualification before him. The captain shouts back, telling Xianghu to watch what he says and to stop saying that in front of them. Xianwu just says that it's okay with him. This makes Xianghu even more furious, saying of course it's okay, since now that jerk will live in the urban area and have a good life. Unjan remains silent, saying nothing, while Chansu again asks him to calm down, since it has already been decided. Xianghu, with his hand trembling from anger, says there must be some scheme involved, and he probably knows what happened. He then looks at Captain Chansu and says that it was probably him who decided this. He decided this thinking that the two qualified do not have the skills to survive in Area 17 because they lack combat abilities, and therefore gave them this qualification to live in the city. Chansu just says that both he and Xianghu will also receive all the mission's rewards, and that there will be another chance for them to move to the city. Xianghu, extremely irritated, asks if he's joking. After all, he doesn't care about those rewards, since they can never compare to the good life he would have in the city. Stressed, Xianghu starts walking towards the door, saying that in that hell of a place, no one knows when their last day will be. He then leaves the room, slamming the door hard. After that, Chansu tells Xianwu that there's no doubt he saved everyone from the attack of the Black Mantis, so he shouldn't worry about accepting the qualification. Xianwu says that he will gladly accept this citizenship. He further explains that he needs to follow the decision that has already been made. The captain agrees. Xianwu imagined that he only accepted that mission thinking about citizenship and has no intention of giving it up, since he risked his life for it. After thinking about this, he only wonders if Hunter Xianghu will be okay with this or not. Chansu explains that Xianghu is a bit hot-headed, but he will eventually calm down and understand the situation. Xianwu really hopes that's the case, knowing very well how hot-headed Xianghu is. The night then arrives at the hospital. Everyone is lying in their beds. Xianwu, unable to sleep, notices something strange in the room. He sees Xianghu awake, getting up from his bed. Xianghu begins to walk around the room. He stands next to the bed where Chansu is sleeping. Xianghu slowly draws his knife from its sheath. Xianwu, concerned, watches while pretending to be asleep. Xianghu then raises his knife, activates his strengthening ability, which begins to overflow through his body, including the knife. And then he attacks the captain's chest, causing Chansu to spit blood at that moment. Chansu still tries to grab Xianghu's neck despite being in great pain. Chansu asks how he could do that to his own captain. Xianghu, completely furious, just shouts that everything that was happening was the captain's fault. After shouting that, he drives the knife in even harder, making the captain spit blood all around. Xianwu keeps his eyes closed, extremely worried about what is happening. The captain's arms are falling to the ground with blood everywhere, while Xianghu wonders how a damn kid who doesn't even have abilities will live in the city before him. Xianwu quietly watches this, while Xianghu shouts that he never wants to return to the desert. His hands are completely covered in blood after murdering his captain. Xianghu then looks to the side, towards Xianwu's bed, asking if he heard that. He then runs towards the curtain where Xianwu's bed is, opens it, and launches an attack, saying that in the end, this is what will happen. He stabs his knife into the blanket where Xianwu was sleeping and shouts that all of this happening is his fault. Xianghu removes the blanket and realizes that Xianwu is not lying there and finds this odd. At that moment, a green grenade falls in front of Xianghu. He looks at it, not understanding what the hell it is. Then a strong explosion is caused towards Xianghu. He is with his eyes closed, shouting what the hell was that which doesn't let him open his eyes. At that moment, Xianwu jumps on Xianghu's back without him noticing. Xianwu grabs with his legs over Xianghu's shoulder. Taking advantage that Xianghu is blinded by the grenade, he takes a knife and drives it with all his force into Xianghu's neck. Xianghu is shocked to receive that stab, while Xianwu is shocked to hear again a voice saying, kill him and take it." He feels like someone is talking to him, telling him to kill and to take. Xianwu begins to worry, saying that this is the same voice he heard when he was with that group fighting against the bronze spider. Now, Xianwu is sure that it wasn't a hallucination. At that moment, Xianwu realizes that his body is starting to fall. It was Xianghu who was throwing the two of them towards the ground to get Xianwu off his back. Xianwu hits the ground hard. Xianghu, still with his strengthening ability active, tries to grab Xianwu's shoulder while saying he is a bastard. He then manages to throw Xianwu again against the ground, making Xianwu spit a lot of blood from the impact. Xianghu gets up and takes the knife embedded in his neck, wondering what the hell that is. He decides to remove it, causing a massive amount of blood to gush out since the knife hit his jugular vein. All that blood falls to the ground. Xianghu tries to stop the bleeding by putting his hand on it, while both groan from so much pain. Xianghu, angry at the situation he is in, imagines that he, a metahuman, is about to lose to an inexperienced loser like Xianwu. Xianwu can't stop trembling in the situation he finds himself in. Xianghu then reaches out to try to grab Xianwu, but falls to the hard ground after losing so much blood. Xianwu looks at his own hands and sees that he can't stop trembling. He then notices that something strange is happening. The strengthening spell is overflowing through his body, and he wonders what the hell is going on. He looks closer, and wonders if this is an awakening. He kneels down, feeling sick as his body still overflows with a power he has never felt before. Xianwu brings his hand to his mouth, thinking that he cannot faint at this moment by any means, since there were still evidences in the room. He picks up the knife from the ground that he used against Xianghu. He starts walking towards the room's window. He opens the window, and then throws the knife out of the room. At that moment, he is startled by someone moaning his name. He turns around and sees Chansu, severely injured, trying to say his name. Xianwu is completely shocked, thinking that the captain had died from the stab to the chest. He now remains completely unresponsive to everything that happened. After all this, Xianwu is taken to another room. A light turns on, and Xianwu is sitting in a chair facing the director. Xianwu lowers his head as he listens to the director saying that they will begin the interrogation. The director explains that the previous morning, in the infirmary, guards were dispatched upon hearing someone scream. He explains that they found a murder scene when they arrived there, and at the scene there was only one witness, and 3 people were injured. He says all this, while showing all the photos taken at the crime scene. The director explains that this incident happened just a few hours before they found Xianwu in the middle of the night. The director, still showing the photos, tells that Hunter Xianghu died on the spot due to a ruptured artery. About Chansu's situation, the director explains that he also had severe injuries and died from blood loss. The director also explains that the only witness present was Miss Yunjan, who by the way was cleared of suspicion, since she had an alibi at the time. The director then looking at Xianwu says that he was found unconscious with impact injuries, so he was probably in a fight. Xianwu remains silent. Some people watching through the glass of the room say that all those mentioned are from the Marlin District's 17th hunting team, and now this present boy is the only one who can give a testimony about what really happened. The director then tells Xianwu that he knows he worked in the Marlin team as a guide for 3 years, and after that, volunteered twice for the city maintenance work as someone unqualified. The director apologizes for the term used and says again that he was considered as a normal civilian. Then the director asks if this information is correct. Xianwu just nods his head, saying yes. The director then goes straight to the point and asks what happened last night. Xianwu simply answers that an intruder broke into the room. The people watching through the glass ask if it really was just a robbery. Xianwu answers yes, that someone invaded the infirmary during the night and attacked them all. Xianwu is clenching his fists, while the director asks if he remembers the appearance of the aggressor, or at least what he was wearing. Xianwu answers that he doesn't, since it was dark. The director asks if all this is true. At this moment he is interrupted by the senator who was listening through the glass. Then, the senator says that this was an incident among the people from the desert, so there is no need to make it a big case. He still says to just report that it was a common robbery, and also asks to increase police patrols. The director says yes, but still has a problem. The senator asks what it was, and the director just says that there is something very strange about the details of this incident. The director then turns the screen back on to show the crime scene photos, and then explains that there was a lot of blood on the floor. However, outside the infirmary, there were no blood traces and not even blood footprints. Xianwu remains silent, while the director still says that all the evidence contradicts everything Xianwu said about the intruder. The director, still looking at Xianwu, says that probably all that is being made up, and that Xianwu is giving a false testimony to try to cover up his own crimes. Xianwu, after being silent, asks if he can say a few things, since he is now considered a suspect. He then begins to explain that, as the director himself said, Xianwu is just a normal civilian without any abilities. He asks how a normal person could possibly confront 2 metahumans. Xianwu questions if the director really believes such a preposterous idea, especially 2 metahumans with physical enhancement abilities. The people behind the glass continue to listen to all this explanation. The director explains that logically speaking, it really would be something impossible. Xianwu also says that he should qualify as an urban citizen once that mission was over. So given that, why would he risk his own life to kill 2 metahumans when he is so weak that he would be classified just to become a common city citizen? The director, looking at the people behind the glass, acknowledges that this argument makes some sense since the Merlin team is an attack squad that barely managed to obtain urban qualifications. The director further explains that there indeed is a good chance that this was an act by some other metahuman trying to obtain citizenship, and that the crime scene also had traces of a brutal fight, and if the suspect were really Xianwu, he would have more than just minor injuries. Xianwu feels relieved to hear this, remembering how badly he was beaten by Shanghu's enhanced blows. He also thinks about how badly injured his body was, but he then awakened that ability right after, which allowed him to recover well. The senator, then looking through the glass, asks the director if he already has an answer about the case, then why not wrap it up? The director asks for a moment. He explains that everything said so far was based on the premise that Xianwu is not a metahuman. The senator, looking down, says he already knows this. The director then asks for the witness to enter. Xianwu is confused, as there was no witness, since the only witnesses would be members of the Merlin team who knew a bit about him. The door to the room then opens. Xianwu looks trying to understand who it could be. The person starts to enter the room. The director kindly asks her to introduce herself. The woman responds that her name is Mari, and she is a researcher from the city's research development team. Xianwu becomes extremely worried seeing that it is this woman. The director then asks what exactly is her job. Mari answers that she determines the qualities a metahuman possesses, and based on this, she assigns them tasks. The director, looking at her, asks how she determines the qualities of metahumans. She replies that she has the ability to determine the signs a metahuman possesses. The director then says that, based on what he's heard, she was called in just because of her ability to assess metahumans. After saying this, the director again asks Xianwu if he really isn't a metahuman. Xianwu replies that he truly isn't. Xianwu, after saying this, gets worried, since it is true. But it was probably true even after everything that happened. The director then asks Mari to stand in front of Xianwu. She agrees. The director explains that there are cases where some people awaken metahuman powers very late, but Xianwu was originally a non-metahuman. The director also says there's a chance Xianwu awakened these abilities after the City Shield mission, and if that's the case, then he really is a suspect. The director says this as Mari walks towards Xianwu. She then stands face to face with him without saying a word. He fixes his gaze on her and starts to remember when he met her, and she said that if by chance he was a metahuman, then she could try to help him. He also recalls Mari's surprise when he said he wasn't a metahuman, since from her powers perspective, he indeed was. He also remembers her saying that she undoubtedly felt signs coming from within Xianwu, indicating that he is indeed a metahuman. The director at this moment asks Mari to confirm whether Xianwu is or isn't a metahuman. She extends her hand and kindly asks Xianwu to give his hands to her. He brings his hands to hers without hesitation. Mari then begins to breathe calmly while activating her power. Xianwu, concerned, remains silent as she uses her ability to check if Xianwu is a metahuman or not. Xianwu tightly closes his eyes as he remembers everything that happened. He remembers going towards the captain's bed when he heard him call. The captain asking him to run before Xianghu killed him. Xianwu realizes that Captain Chansu isn't conscious enough to realize that Xianghu is already dead at that moment. And yet, Chansu continues to worry about Xianwu, even while being so injured. Chansu then takes his last breath, while Xianwu screams his name. At that moment, energy begins to overflow. Smoke starts to emanate from the captain's body and moves towards Xianwu. He is frightened, trying to understand what is happening. The energy starts to emanate more forcefully towards Xianwu. He kneels as his body begins to absorb that power. Xianwu, trembling while this is happening, realizes that this sensation was the same as when he awakened moments before and wonders if he is awakening again. He, completely dizzy, realizes that it's not quite the same since now it's something stronger. He looks up and starts to scream as a powerful energy begins to overflow from his body. The energy stops overflowing and Xianwu begins to fall to the ground until he finally lies down unconscious. Xianwu continues with his eyes closed, while Mari still conducts her assessment using her ability. She then, looking at Xianwu, is speechless. Mari turns to the director and says that she has finished checking. The director then kindly asks her to report the results. She slowly says that Xianwu is definitely not a metahuman. The director, surprised by that answer, asks if she's sure of that. She confirms that yes, Xianwu is definitely a normal person. Xianwu, extremely confused, senses that something is wrong, since previously she had sensed that he had awakened. He wonders what she might be plotting. The people behind the glass say that the test results are reliable, so they should send Mari back to her place. The director adjusts his glasses and says that's fine. He concludes the verification there. Mari then thanks him and says she will leave. The senator still mentions that they will discuss the murder case, where someone who was disqualified from being a citizen tried to kill someone who was qualified to receive citizenship. The senator asks that they mark all of them, mark all the meta-humans who were not allowed to receive citizenship among the offensive squad that participated in the mission, as suspects, and check their alibis. The director then asks what they should do with Xianwu as a result of the interrogation. Xianwu immediately interrupts them and says he will renounce his citizenship and will leave that city. The director finds this decision strange and informs that the city council has no problem if Xianwu's decision is that. But why did he decide to give up that citizenship? Xianwu says that his leader Chansu and the hunter Unjian deserved that citizenship from the start. Xianwu continues sitting while the director tells him that he fought hard for that citizenship, and if he really gives it up this time, he will need to go through the whole selection process again if he changes his mind. The director, intrigued by that, asks why he would give it up out of nowhere. Or rather, what is the real reason for him to reject the citizenship and go back to square one in the desert? Xianwu then begins to explain, saying it's basically as the director mentioned a short time ago. Xianwu also says he doesn't want to survive and end up being a suspect for having murdered his teammates with whom he had been for 3 years. Xianwu, looking at the director, says he won't accept citizenship only to be attacked by the real murderer, who, by the way, is still out there. The director, reflecting well on all this, says that there really is perfect logic in Xianwu's reasons, so basically, he is no longer a suspect. Back in the city, Xianwu is talking with Unjian about everything that happened. Unjian then bids farewell to Xianwu, since it was his decision to leave there. Xianwu fixes his gaze a bit towards Unjian, and only then decides to walk away from there. At that moment, he hears someone calling his name. As he turns around, he notices that it is Mari calling him. She finally catches up to him, mentioning how fast Xianwu is, as she had to run quite a bit to catch up with him. Xianwu watches her apprehensively, wondering why she would want to talk to him, especially after the interrogation. Mari, smiling, says she's relieved they didn't discover Xianwu as a metahuman, which would have led to him being expelled from the city. Xianwu, concerned, starts to suspect that she definitely knew the truth. He turns to her, thinking that if she had been planning something, she would have spoken up along the way. He then tells Mari that he probably experienced an awakening because of the incident. Mari acknowledges the tough situation he went through, likely not having killed his own teammate, but having been in a critical situation where he needed to defend himself. Xianwu, still unsure of Mari's intentions, asks why she didn't reveal everything during the interrogation since she knew the truth. Mari smiles and says it's because she is interested in Xianwu's abilities. She then begins to walk closer to Xianwu and says she felt something different from him, something new that made her very anxious. She explains that she received a signal from Xianwu that no other metahuman possesses. Xianwu doesn't quite understand what that means. Mari asks if Xianwu knows about metahumans being divided into 6 categories. He nods, indicating he does. She says she will explain anyway. Basically, most metahumans fit into one of 6 categories: physical enhancement, supernatural powers, magical technology, evil domestication, psychotic linkage, and magic. However, like Senator Beatrice from the city, there are metahumans who don't fit the standard. They have a different signal. Xianwu is puzzled and asks if Beatrice's ability isn't categorized under supernatural powers. Mari says she understands why he would think that, but explains that Beatrice's ability to raise a barrier around the entire city is indeed a supernatural power. Mari further explains that Senator Beatrice is the only metahuman capable of creating a barrier that can cover an entire city, and not only that, but maintain the barrier for a whole year, which is truly incredible. After saying all this, Mari asks Xianwu if there wasn't anything strange about the time he awakened. He remains silent as he recalls the events. He was standing over Xianghu's body, trembling with fear. Then he heard a voice saying, "Yes, kill him and take it." Recalling this, Xianwu comments that he thinks he heard a voice at the moment of awakening. Mari says that might be the case. There are psychotic affiliation metahumans who often hear commanding voices. Mari takes the opportunity to ask what exactly that voice said to him. Xianwu is wary of what he should respond. He says he doesn't remember very well what the voice said. Xianwu figures that although Mari may seem quite friendly at the moment, That's no reason for him to reveal everything about himself. Mari, thoughtful, says it's sad he doesn't remember, but that's also quite strange. She then looks at Xianwu again and says she has a slight feeling that he, like Senator Beatrice, has a type of signal completely different from others. Xianwu is surprised to hear this. Still not fully understanding, he remarks that it doesn't seem to be something bad. Xianwu still thinks that, to be honest, the ability he awakened seems to be at most common physical enhancement. So how could that be an incredible different signal comparable to Senator Beatrice's barrier ability? That didn't make sense to Xianwu. Mari adds that, despite all this, Xianwu is still a novice as a metahuman, so obviously he won't manifest anything incredible right away. Xianwu agrees that makes sense. He reflects on the cataclysm when demonic beasts first appeared. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, but survived thanks to the emergence of metahumans. Mari also mentions that if the non-standard metahumans were to unite with Senator Beatrice, what kind of miracle could happen? Mari, looking towards where Beatrice is located, says that the only concern is not knowing how much longer Senator Beatrice can hold on, since for over a decade, she has neglected her own health and maintained the barrier alone. Xianwu remembers a conversation with Captain Chansu, where he said that Beatrice could barely sleep. Xianwu, also looking towards where Beatrice is, thinks that the rumors make sense as they have even reached the desert. Xianwu, looking up, notices something. Beatrice was focused, looking at him too. Suddenly Beatrice diverts her gaze upon noticing that Xianwu also looked at her. Xianwu becomes worried, certain that he saw Beatrice observing their conversation below. Mari says that Senator Beatrice is doing everything she can with the power she has left solely to protect the city. Mari tells Xianwu again that he can believe her or not, but her abilities to distinguish other metahumans confirm that hunch. She then takes Xianwu's hand, saying that he is an out-of-the-standard metahuman with great potential for the future, just like Senator Beatrice. Mari says she's sure that Xianwu will be responsible for ending the fights against the demonic beasts and thereby saving humanity. Xianwu is surprised to hear this, as it's a heavy statement to say that he will be responsible for saving humanity. Xianwu then heads back to the desert and ponders everything he has gone through. The death of 2 colleagues, the trial, awakening twice in a row, and a voice in his head saying, "Kill the metahuman." Xianwu continues his walk back to Area 17, while thinking his head is about to explode. Besides all that he's been through, there's also this idea of saving humanity. He thinks that since the portals where the demonic beasts first appeared, up to the near-complete extinction of humanity, was just a decade ago. Xianwu, still walking through the desert, thinks about how many people were left behind in that same desert with just one life goal: to survive. Xianwu imagines that he doesn't care about saving humanity. He starts climbing up to the top of the bridge, while thinking that his only goal is to survive in the desert, where Darwin's natural selection applies. You die if you don't know the extent of your abilities. Xianwu reaches the bridge while thinking it doesn't matter whether it's a demonic beast or a human. He looks up and thinks that now, as a new metahuman, his top priority is to discover more about his own abilities. Xianwu starts walking again towards an abandoned city. He approaches the city in ruins and says that he will test his new abilities there in Mokdong. For Xianwu, it is the best place to test newly awakened abilities. Suddenly, just as he arrives at the ruined city, he notices something odd there. He looks to the side, into an abandoned building, and hears a roar. 2 eyes emerge from within that darkness. A monster appears and Xianwu becomes worried, as it seems there is a demonic beast inside. He becomes concerned, having encountered a demonic beast much sooner than he imagined. The demonic beast was drooling so hungrily that its drool fell to the ground as it walked towards Xianwu. Xianwu, seeing the monster, recognizes it. It's the venomous cat that is of the 16th category. The venomous cat starts running towards Xianwu. The demonic cat strikes, but Xianwu ducks in time. At this moment, the cores that were with Xianwu fall to the ground. Xianwu sees that he dropped the cores and becomes worried. The venomous cat looks at Xianwu again with an even more frightening stare. Xianwu starts walking backwards to get away from the cat, but bumps into a car, finding himself in a complicated situation to escape from that demonic beast. The venomous cat then once again runs towards Xianwu, trying to devour him with a single bite. Xianwu manages to dodge in time, causing the beast to crash onto the car. Xianwu starts running at full speed, thinking that he needs to do something about those venom-filled teeth. He spots a manhole cover ahead and says that it's exactly what he needs. He goes to the cover and places his hands on it to try to pull it up. At that moment, energy starts to overflow through his body. It's physical enhancement. He begins to exert a lot of force trying to dislodge the manhole cover from the ground while the physical enhancement flows through his body. The cover finally comes loose, and he uses it as a shield, provoking the demonic cat to attack him. The venomous cat, undeterred, charges at Seonwoo again, trying to devour him. Seonwoo protects himself with the manhole cover, but the cat is very heavy, making it hard to hold back. Seonwoo finds an opening and then strikes the venomous cat's mouth hard with the manhole cover. Taking advantage of the demonic beast being slightly stunned, Seonwoo starts to spin his body quickly to gain momentum, and then he throws the cover with all his strength towards the demonic cat. The cover hits the cat's face squarely, causing it to bleed profusely as the cover falls to the ground. Seonwoo, without wasting time, starts running, thinking that now is a good opportunity. He then picks up the manhole cover again, jumps high towards the cat while shouting loudly as he was exerting a lot of force, and hits the demonic cat's head squarely, which tries to defend itself by biting the cover just as it takes the hit. Seonwoo, applying great force, manages to easily break the monster's teeth, causing the demonic cat to fall backwards onto the ground. Seonwoo lifts the cover to continue attacking the demonic cat non-stop. He delivers a blow while the demonic cat is still lying down, causing purple blood to spurt everywhere. He keeps attacking, and the more he attacks, the more purple blood is sprayed. Seonwoo finally stops as he throws the manhole cover on the ground. The demonic cat was already motionless on the ground, bleeding heavily. Seonwoo puts his hand on the hood to take it off, and then feels relieved that the venomous cat is finally dead. Seonwoo then picks up his knife and begins to cut open the body of the demonic cat. He starts opening up the entire belly of the demonic cat, and upon finally reaching the stomach, he is happy to see that he found a high-quality core, specifically of class 16. He picks up the cores and celebrates the moment. Seonwoo begins to gather the intestines of the demonic cat and then ties a knot, making it into a bag. He gathers all the cores that had fallen when the fight started. Seonwoo then puts all the cores inside the makeshift bag he made using the intestines of the demonic cat. He observes his conquest and smiles, saying that having killed a venomous cat means Seonwoo can be considered at least a class 16 meta-human. Seonwoo starts his journey again, saying that it was a good start, considering this would be considered his first test. He continues walking through the abandoned buildings and reaches a part where there are some banners saying, "Welcome to the desert oasis. You can get anything here." Seonwoo looks around and notes that the place is very quiet, which is strange. He then looks to the side and notices blood on the ground. He goes to the blood, touches it with his finger, and notes that the blood has not yet coagulated. Seonwoo starts looking around the area near the blood and notices that although there is a lot of blood, there are no corpses nearby. Seonwoo wonders if someone was killed there by an assassin. At that moment, a shadow passes behind him. Seonwoo looks back, having noticed something odd, but only sees some broken doors. He takes his knife for safety and starts running towards the door where he felt something strange. When he gets there, he starts lifting the door and immediately notices something. 3 children are hiding underneath those doors. The boys tremble as Seonwoo asks if they are survivors living there. At that moment, a shadow approaches Seonwoo. As it gets closer, Seonwoo realizes someone has arrived behind him. Quickly he turns around and simultaneously, the armored person rushes towards him to attack. Seonwoo doesn't hesitate and strikes back before the person can reach him. The armored person manages to jump back in time to avoid being hit by the knife. Then they leap and start running along the walls trying to attack from above. Seonwoo is surprised by this and starts to wonder if the person is trying to take him down. The armored person drops towards Seonwoo, wielding their knife with both hands. Seonwoo dodges and delivers an elbow strike to the person's abdomen, throwing them back due to the impact. The person holds their head, feeling a lot of pain from the blow, then reaches a hand to their back. Seonwoo grows concerned at this action. The armored person draws a firearm and demands Seonwoo to lower his knife and raise both hands to his head. The children begin to run towards the person with the firearm, while the armored person instructs Seonwoo to slowly turn and face the wall. Seonwoo complies with these commands and asks the armored person to lower their weapon while they talk. Seonwoo introduces himself and even mentions that he belongs to Node. The armored person, still pointing the gun, asks if he is indeed from Node. Seonwoo, looking back, says he does not intend to hurt anyone and that he is just passing through. The armored person states that they don't care about that, whether he is from Node or not. They simply order Seonwoo to place all his belongings on the ground and leave the area. Seonwoo then asks if the armored person is trying to rob a Node metahuman. The armored person asks if he is indeed a metahuman. Seonwoo raises his hand while charging his ability and then punches the wall, creating a hole. After doing this, Xianwu asks if they want to test whether he is a metahuman or not. The armored person and the children are shocked to see this. Xianwu, after punching the wall, states that the armored person probably knows what node is, since they are in the desert. The armored person recites the phrase, "Last order of the desert." Xianwu then turns around and says that it seems they understand, and he recites the phrases, "Node does not loot," and "Node will only accept requests for a reasonable price." The person hearing this shouts for Xianwu to turn and stop again. Xianwu also says the phrase, "If someone is hurt because of Node, Node will definitely seek vengeance." The armored person becomes somewhat worried upon hearing this. Moreover, Xianwu informs them that they cannot shoot just like that. The armored person asks what he means by that. Xianwu, looking at their weapon, states that apparently it is not a firearm, and asks if the weapon uses core energy. Xianwu adds that considering each shot would consume a core, and that's worth several days of food, they won't pull the trigger carelessly. Xianwu explains that he just wants to stay safe for a few days, and then he will disappear from there without anyone seeing him. The armored person agrees, saying they will trust him at that moment, but asks for the cores Xianwu has as collateral until the day he leaves quietly. Xianwu pauses for a moment, then tosses his bag to the armored person. Xianwu says he'll do this only because he can easily take them back anyway, so if it will put the person at ease, then it's no problem. Xianwu keeps watching the person as they say Xianwu only misunderstood one thing. Xianwu asks what that is. The armored person adjusts their core and then fires a shot at the wall behind Xianwu. They look at the damage caused by the shot as the armored person explains that, while it's true that the weapon consumes precious core energy, he really can't fire indiscriminately. However, he can perform that level of action as many times as he wants with a core. The armored person then laughs, suggesting that it was expected, even if when the weapon is fully charged it behaves differently. Xianwu is surprised by this, realizing that this is a technique that increases the efficiency of core energy so it can be used multiple times. Essentially, this is magical technology. The person finally removes their mask and introduces themselves, saying their name is Arang. Still in the abandoned city, Xianwu follows Arang up some stairs while Arang still has their weapon pointed at Xianwu. The children also follow. As Xianwu climbs the stairs, he asks why Arang lives in such a high place like that building. Arang explains that it wouldn't really be necessary if the only enemies were demonic beasts, but he prefers to live high up to deal with humans. Xianwu guesses it's because of assassins. Xianwu reaches the top as Arang instructed and is surprised by what he finds. He encounters several people there, including one of the children from below calling out to their mother. Xianwu observes a blonde woman on the floor tinkering with a crossbow. He also notices two other women gossiping about something. The woman, who calls herself Reina and is the leader of the shelter, communicates with Xianwu through a device, asking if he is indeed a metahuman from Node. Reina says that in the past, she would have treated visitors better, but after some incidents, that's no longer possible. Xianwu notices that there is a well-established military system in place, and wonders if all of this was made possible because of the leader's ability. Reina explains that they are currently at war against the assassins at that moment, and because of this, they are low on supplies. Xianwu begins to realize that demonic beasts are not the only enemies in the desert. After all, there are these marauding assassins who have ceased to be human to hunt humans. Xianwu mentions that the assassins disturbing the desert are also a nuisance for Node, and then he suggests a commission. The leader then says she is desperate, but it's not like Node wants nothing in return. Xianwu agrees but says he's offering a chance, so why not at least listen? Reina smiles and says he seems interesting. Xianwu says he first wants to understand the situation before they decide on the details of the commission, and then asks where they live and how many they are. Reina informs him that they live in a driver's license testing center to the east of there, and that there are about 10 of them, give or take. Xianwu finds it strange since the enemies are only 10, while the shelter has more people besides having a well-established base. Reina says it's true, they've killed many of the assassins, but many from the shelter have also died in combat. They used to be 100, Reina explained. Xianwu is shocked to hear there were 100 people, and that it apparently wasn't easy. It probably wasn't easy for those bastards to gather food for so many people either. Reina says there's just one more detail. The bastards like human flesh. Xianwu is shocked, not expecting that there would also be cannibals there. Reina adds that there's an even bigger problem than cannibalism among the bastards. She explains that there are also metahumans, in addition to having combat abilities. Xianwu, starting to get worried about the situation, asks if they are strong. Reina says that's not so much the problem. After all, Even among the weakest, they are still metahumans with somewhat troublesome abilities. Xianwu, still under the aim of a gun and a spear, continues to listen to what Reina has to say. She explains that honestly, the servants of the bastards are weak, and it was only the specific bastard who did this to them. The women of the shelter listen sadly to the whole story, while Reina says she doesn't have many desires. She just wants to kill all those crazy bastards. She looks at Arang and expresses her wish for the death of the bastards who have cornered everyone in the shelter like chickens about to be slaughtered. Xianwu remains silent for a moment as he absorbs everything he's heard and declares that it will be an annihilation of assassins. Xianwu will take this as a commission and will handle it himself. Reina thanks him but mentions that they in the shelter have nothing to offer in return. Xianwu insists that they do have something. He asks to meet the magical technician of the shelter. Arang is surprised to hear this. Reina thinks for a moment and then leads him to another room towards the person he seeks. Xianwu continues up more stairs while Arang keeps the weapon pointed at him all the while. The three finally arrive at a room that is a tremendous mess. Arang calls out Minnie upon entering the room, and then a woman appears asking if they need something. This was the shelter's magical technician. Reina asks how her work is going. Minnie makes a sad face and says it's not going well, as even if she wanted to test her artifacts, there are no cores for it. Xianwu is surprised to see her, as he didn't expect the technician to be such a young person. Minnie looks at Xianwu and asks who he is. Arang replies that he is a meta-human from Node and that he will help them. Reina, still using a device to communicate, says that Xianwu has something he would like to ask Minnie. Minnie inquires what it would be. Xianwu, looking at all those creations, asks if she was responsible for all that. She also looks at those creations and laughs lightly, affirming that she was, but they aren't much. Xianwu, still observing the weapons, thinks Minnie is being too modest, as she managed to make all kinds of artifacts even under the shelter's precarious conditions. Xianwu asks if he can touch the items. Minnie, scratching her head, says, "There's no problem, but those items really aren't worth looking at." Xianwu picks up a weapon and is surprised by how light it is. Minnie, nearly crying out of sadness, says she ruined that weapon because the body of the gun couldn't handle the recoil when firing. Arang remembers that test, and in desperation, thought he was going to die using it. Xianwu, as he examined the weapons, is impressed by one in particular. He looks at a type of sword and asks what it is. Minnie smiles and explains that it's a tuning blade. Xianwu takes it in his hands and inquires what a tuning blade is. Minnie explains that it was also a failed creation of hers. Xianwu asks if there's something wrong with it. Minnie begins to explain that her intention in making that sword was to increase its strength and heat, and thus attach a core to the sword to protect it. Minnie further explains that to put the desired force, more cores than she anticipated are needed, and making more sockets for the cores offsets the weight balance. Xianwu continues to be surprised as he listens to her explanation, while Minnie says that to use that sword as it is, the cutting force is much weaker than a regular knife. Xianwu, still amazed by the sword, says he likes it and asks her to sell it to him. Minnie is surprised, since she only said bad things about the sword. Minnie panics, saying she would never sell a failure of hers. She adds that if he wants to use the sword, he should just take it and use it. Simple as that. Xianwu begins to take out some cores from his bag, saying his intention was to take an artifact as payment for executing the commission. But now that he's seen the quality of that artifact, he feels very bad about simply taking it without paying for it. The three women are amazed to see that pile of cores, as it's something relatively difficult to obtain. Xianwu says he was impressed by Minnie's talent, and pleads with her to continue her research using those cores he took from the bag. Minnie is startled by the quantity of cores, and says she can't take all that. She says this while pushing the cores towards Xianwu. Xianwu places his hands on the cores as she pushes them, saying there's no need to bother with that. At that moment, their hands touch, and both Xianwu and Minnie feel something strange happening in their minds. Xianwu notices that something is coming to his mind. He wonders if it's something related to magical technology. Arang asks what they think they're doing holding hands. Reina asks Xianwu if he isn't holding Minnie's hand too tightly. Xianwu gets embarrassed upon hearing that and says it's not what they think. Minnie spends a moment looking at her own hand. At that moment, a voice comes into Xianwu's head saying, "Kill her. Kill and take the power." Xianwu holds his head and thinks, what's going on? He drops Minnie's sword on the ground. Minnie finds it strange why Xianwu is acting like that. Reina tells Xianwu to rest a bit, seeing him in that state. Xianwu says he will indeed rest a bit. Reina laughs and says if he has trouble sleeping, she'll come to his room to sing a lullaby for him. Xianwu bends down to pick up the sword and says there's no need. Reina smiles and says he doesn't need to act so mature after what happened. This time it's Minnie who asks if she should sing a lullaby for Xianwu. He, embarrassed, says he's fine and doesn't need that. Night then arrives. Xianwu is lying down, imagining that again the voice comes into his head asking him to kill. He looks at his hand and says he heard that after some time, the voice disappears. Xianwu closes his eyes and notices that the voice gets stronger. He remembers the voice saying, "Kill!" At that moment, Xianwu was in front of Xianghu, who was already dying with a knife in his neck. Then Xianwu heard, "Kill the meta-human." At that moment, Xianwu was looking at Captain Chansu. This time, the voice says it when he is with Minnie. The voice always says, "Kill and take the power." Xianwu opens his eyes, scared. He realizes it was just a dream. Xianwu gets up a bit from the bed and notices that it's already morning. At that moment, someone is looking at people through binoculars. It's Xianwu and Orang looking at the assassin's base. Xianwu asks who there is the meta-human. Orang replies that it's the leader of the assassins. Xianwu asks what abilities this leader has. Orang says he doesn't remember since he barely escaped with his life. Orang thinks a bit more about the assassin's leader and says he only remembers that he moves very quickly. Xianwu starts thinking that he didn't accept the mission just out of kindness. After all, he wants to test his abilities, but he can't let his guard down just because of that. Xianwu sees Orang opening a box and asks what that is. Orang replies that there's a sniper rifle that Minnie finished making yesterday. Orang starts loading the weapon, saying it uses electromagnetic energy. Orang turns the weapon and says the noise level of that rifle is almost zero, besides being powerful. He then starts putting cores into the weapon, saying he didn't use it before because he didn't have those cores available. Orang also says that he can only use this rifle thanks to the core Xianwu gave him. Xianwu looks at that rifle and says he hopes it will be useful. Orang unlocks the safety pin, looks at Xianwu, and says he fully trusts Minnie's ability to produce good weapons. Xianwu draws his sword and says he's also counting on Minnie for this to work. Orang looks worried and asks if Xianwu is really going to use that unfinished sword. Xianwu takes a core in his hand and says yes, since the sword consumes cores, and he has them available. Orang sees that core and is surprised by how small and clean it is. Xianwu says it was made in the city of Guangmyong. Xianwu inserts the core into the sword and says there's compressed power inside that core thanks to the changes made in the city. Xianwu holds the sword and says 10 cores can be compressed into a single core. Orang, surprised by that, says the city really has everything. Xianwu asks if he's never been to the city. Orang replies that he hasn't. He was born and raised there in Mokdong. Xianwu asks if he doesn't remember Mokdong from before. Orang says no since he was very young. Xianwu talks about Mokdong, which was once large with 10 million people, but the demonic beasts swept everything away. Orang, surprised, can't believe that Mokdong had so many people. He says it seems it was even bigger than Guangmyong. Xianwu agrees, saying it can't even be compared. Orang closes his eyes and says he would like to live in the city one day. Xianwu watches her quietly. Orang asks if that's Xianwu's dream as well. Xianwu remembers Xianghu saying he would never go back to the desert. Xianwu remains silent for a moment. He activates the core in the sword, and it begins to glow brightly from within. Orang is confused by what Xianwu is doing while he asks if they should test those weapons. Xianwu takes a brick in his hand, throws it up, and then cuts it in half with extreme ease using his new sword. Orang sees how efficient the sword is and finds it incredible. Xianwu says they are ready and now just need to wait until night. Night falls. Orang goes to Xianwu and asks him to wake up because it's time. Xianwu thanks Orang for keeping watch and asks about the situation. Orang says the assassins must be sleeping, given the silence below. Xianwu looks through his binoculars and sees a guard in a tower. He asks if Orang can take out the guard in the tower when he gets down. Orang responds affirmatively. Xianwu moves to the street and notices 2 guards on the ground, plus the guard in the tower controlling the lights. At this moment, one of the guards is yawning and doesn't notice someone approaching from behind. It's Xianwu, who subdues him, placing a knife at his throat. The guard, trembling, starts to reach for the knife at his waist. Xianwu notices this and then stabs his knife into the guard's throat. The man in the tower notices something strange on the street. He shines his flashlight towards the suspicious noise and sees the body of the fallen guard, covered in blood. He grabs his radio to alert the base, but gets shot in the head by Orang's rifle. As he gets shot, his arm hits the flashlight, changing its direction. Xianwu notices this and worries about where the flashlight pointed. It is now aimed at one of the rooms where the assassins are sleeping. One person inside is annoyed by the bright light in their face. They pull off the blanket and get up, asking why the flashlight is pointed at their room. Another guard is patrolling the side of the building. Suddenly, a strong gush of blood splatters everywhere. It was Xianwu finishing off that guard. Xianwu watches the man die and says it's easy for a metahuman to kill someone without abilities. He becomes thoughtful, saying that even though this isn't the first person he's killed, he doesn't want to get used to it. At that moment, Xianwu senses a presence nearby. He turns and sees someone standing and watching him. It is a bald man smiling. The man's legs are very muscular. Xianwu is concerned because he didn't sense the man's approach. The bald man starts running toward Xianwu. Xianwu worries because he realizes this person is very fast. The man arrives at high speed and quickly dodges Xianwu's attack. The bald man then swiftly sweeps Xianwu's legs, easily knocking him to the ground. The bald man approaches Xianwu on the ground and places his knee on Xianwu's stomach. He looks intently at Xianwu and asks who he is and where he came from. Xianwu quickly channels his physical reinforcement into his arm. The bald assassin notices this and jumps back, recognizing the danger. The bald assassin asks if Xianwu is a metahuman. Xianwu doesn't respond, only gripping his sword firmly. The bald assassin, smiling, says this is interesting and suggests they move to a larger space to fight. Xianwu is surprised because he obviously didn't want this. However, outside, Xianwu could be seen being thrown through a window by a strike from the bald assassin. Xianwu lands heavily on a car. Arang watches from a distance with his rifle and asks what's happening. Xianwu gets up slightly, his face starting to bleed from the impact. The assassin quickly jumps out the window towards Xianwu. Xianwu throws himself to the ground at the last moment, causing the assassin to crush the car with his jump. Other assassins emerge, shouting for their leader. The assassin, who is the leader, tells them not to approach because Xianwu is his target. Xianwu becomes furious and decides to activate his physical reinforcement. At that moment, the assassin leader notices a bullet passing by his head, narrowly missing. Arang, frustrated, realizes he missed the shot. The leader looks in the direction of the shot and sees a light shining from the top of a building. Arang starts firing multiple shots while the leader of the assassins easily dodges using his high speed. Arang becomes furious at the speed of that bastard. The leader orders everyone to go to the west building where the sniper is located. They all run there immediately. Arang looks through the sniper lens and sees several assassins heading his way. He starts to worry as things are getting complicated. Arang manages to shoot one of the approaching assassins in the head. The rest run towards the building, commanding to kill the sniper. Meanwhile, the assassin leader continues running towards Xianwu. Xianwu, with his physical reinforcement activated, prepares for battle. Xianwu quickly strikes with his sword, but the leader easily dodges. The assassin mocks him, saying Xianwu is incredibly slow. The assassin then places his foot on a tire and kicks it towards Xianwu. Xianwu quickly slices the tire in half, but the assassin is already heading towards him. The tire was just to obstruct Xianwu's vision for a moment. Xianwu is startled by the assassin's incredible speed. Xianwu keeps holding his sword as the assassin approaches. The assassin then plants his foot on the ground and delivers a lightning-fast kick to Xianwu's hand, sending the sword flying. The sword falls to the side, leaving Xianwu unarmed. The assassin takes a battle stance and comments that Xianwu apparently doesn't know how to use his powers properly. Xianwu starts to worry because it's true. The assassin asks if Xianwu recently awakened his powers. Xianwu remains silent. The assassin invites Xianwu to join his group of assassins, promising to teach him how to fight. Xianwu grabs a knife and asks if the assassin leader wants him to join to loot the desert. Xianwu apologizes, saying the voices in his head are ordering him to kill all the assassins there. The assassin leader says it's a pity, but that Xianwu will be his dinner tonight. The assassin prepares to run. Xianwu also runs towards him. They clash, each using their abilities. Meanwhile, the other assassins are entering the building to hunt the sniper. One of the thugs shouts that the person is probably upstairs. He starts to climb but trips over a line that triggers a trap. A shot is fired at the location. From the top of the building, Arang can hear the assassins screaming in pain. Arang is preparing a rope while laughing at what's happening inside. Smiling, Arang says he set up all the traps nicely so the assassins will run into all of them. The assassin leader remains excited about the fight. Xianwu is worried about the leader's high speed. The assassin starts running again and then delivers multiple kicks. Xianwu manages to dodge some but is hit by one of the kicks, which sends him flying, sliding down the street from the impact. Worried, Xianwu realizes he needs to calm down since that assassin has more combat experience than he does. From the top of the building, Arang keeps his rifle aimed while the assassins pound on the locked door. They continue frantically trying to break down the tied-up door. Arang, with his rifle, calmly says that the door won't open no matter what. Looking through the rifle's lens, he becomes worried because he can't locate the assassin leader. He thinks Xianwu needs to move to draw the assassin into the sniper's line of sight. The assassin kicks a car, getting excited, and delivers another powerful kick. Xianwu keeps dodging at the last second. He observes that the kicks, besides being fast, are very powerful, easily denting the car. The assassin delivers another powerful kick to the car, causing enormous damage. Xianwu, already sweating heavily, notes that this meta-human is both fast and has strong kicks. Looking at the assassin's muscular legs, he wonders if those are his only characteristics. The assassin continues to kick while Xianwu manages to dodge, thinking he should engage in close combat. Xianwu dodges another kick and questions if he really evaded it. At that moment, the assassin changes the direction of his kick and attacks with his knee. Xianwu tries to defend with his hands, but it's too late. The assassin's knee strikes Xianwu's chin, sending him flying. Xianwu screams in pain as the knee strike hits him hard. The assassin runs again, saying he'll finish with a combo of downward kicks. As he approaches Xianwu, the assassin is grazed by a bullet. He looks to the side, enraged by the interference of a sniper. Another shot comes towards the assassin leader. He starts dodging all the shots and runs behind the cars for cover. Arang becomes furious, saying the assassin is like a rat when it comes to hiding. The assassin notices the graze is causing significant bleeding. He stays hidden, muttering that the sniper is a real nuisance. The leader then gets up and starts running at full speed, dodging the shots again. He looks at the building and declares he's changing targets. Arang starts shouting, telling the damn monster not to come towards him. She fires several shots, but the assassin dodges them all with his high speed. Arang begins to worry as her sniper rifle starts smoking, irritated to find the core's energy is low. The assassin then crouches for momentum and leaps with all his might. With his super jump, he climbs the building from the outside until he finally reaches the top, standing face to face with Arang. She is utterly terrified as he managed to jump up there. The assassin then attacks with all his might using his leg. Arang, scared, holds the rifle in front of her face to protect herself. The kick hits hard, breaking the rifle in half. Arang quickly backflips and prepares to fight. She grabs her crossbow and aims it at the assassin. He stands still, showing no reaction. Arang is already sweating cold at this point. The assassin leader smiles and asks if she came from Mokdong. The assassin's wound worsens, causing blood to drip onto the floor. At that moment, Arang takes advantage and fires an arrow at the assassin. The arrow grazes him, but he dodges it with a simple head movement. Arang panics while loading another arrow into her crossbow. The assassin begins to walk slowly towards her. Arang, with her crossbow aimed, orders him not to come any closer. She fires another shot, but again the assassin dodges by just moving his head to the side. Arang quickly tries to load another arrow to shoot again. By this time, the assassin is face to face with her and says she will be his appetizer. Arang can't stop trembling at that moment. The assassin leader, with a diabolical smile, urges her to shoot already. She is in shock from the fear. Despite her fear, she finally manages to shoot her arrow at that close distance. However, the assassin catches the arrow in midair before it hits his head. Arang becomes even more worried, saying it's impossible. The assassin breaks the arrow and says such a toy does nothing against him. Arang, stressed, attacks the assassin with the crossbow. The assassin quickly runs towards Arang's belongings, grabs her by the arms, and throws her to the ground, telling his appetizer to stay quiet. Arang, irritated, starts calling the assassin a crazy bastard. He picks up a piece of the arrow from the ground and uses it to open a wound on Arang's back. She starts screaming in pain, asking what the hell that sicko is doing. The assassin says he loves hearing screams right before a meal. Arang calls him trash, begging him to kill her already. The assassin asks who she thinks she is to give orders, telling her to shut up so she doesn't bite her own tongue. He gets closer and says that either way the taste of the meat won't change, whether it has a tongue or not. He then approaches her face, smiling, and says that meat needs a tongue to scream. The assassin is eager to see her in pieces. Arang begins to struggle, calling the assassin a bastard. He just tells her to scream louder. At that moment, something hits the tied-up door. The assassin turns and asks what that was. A blade slices through what was blocking the door from opening. It was Xianwu, who arrived kicking the door open. Arang is delighted to see that he finally arrived. Xianwu simply apologizes for the delay and asks the assassin if his arms and legs are still intact. The assassin laughs and says yes. Xianwu comments that it was really annoying to climb up there because there was so much trash on the stairs that he had to eliminate before getting there. The assassin leader says that's not a problem because he'll be able to make a great feast with so many dead people. The assassin, distracted, suddenly gets startled. It was Arang, who had jumped on his back without him noticing, quickly stabbing a piece of iron near the assassin's neck. He screams in pain and asks how she dares to do that. Arang shouts for Seonwoo to take advantage of the moment quickly. Seonwoo, wasting no time, runs at the assassin and delivers a sword strike, hitting his leg squarely. The assassin leader can't believe everything is happening so fast. He looks down and sees his leg has been cut off. He then starts screaming desperately with one of his legs severed. The assassin leader yells, calling Seonwoo a bastard, and asks how he dares to do that. Seonwoo says it's a pity the assassin's leg had to go like that. The assassin, worried and furious, calls Seonwoo a bastard. Seonwoo raises his sword and says the real bastard is the assassin for doing all that. Without losing time, Seonwoo delivers his final blow with all his strength, making the assassin's head fly off. The voice comes again in Seonwoo's head, telling him to take the assassin's power. Seonwoo is startled to realize that the voice came again in his head. At that moment, Seonwoo starts screaming as he absorbs the power of that metahuman. Suddenly, Seonwoo opens his eyes. He starts looking around and notices he is inside a pickup truck. Arang approaches and asks if he finally woke up, as he suddenly fainted. Seonwoo, looking at Arang, asks if he carried him alone. Arang says yes, as there's only him there. Seonwoo notices that even though Arang has a small body, he still has quite a bit of strength. Seonwoo asks what they will do with the truck. Arang responds that it has supplies the assassin stole. Arang starts walking towards the truck. Seonwoo asks if he knows how to drive. Arang replies that he's driven some abandoned cars before. He then turns the key and prays for the car to start. Arang, happy to see the car starting, begins to change the music in the car. The two continue their journey while a strange song plays. The music continues during the trip, and the two find it strange. Arang asks what the hell kind of music that is. Seonwoo responds that it was by some famous singers before the cataclysm. Arang is shocked by this but finds the music cool. They continue their journey while the music keeps playing in the car. On the way, they notice a red light ahead. It was a strong light coming from a flare. Seonwoo wonders if that light is coming from the shelter. Arang becomes worried, as it was a signal from the shelter, and the color made it even more concerning. They speed up to reach the shelter quickly. At the shelter, someone is running frantically. This person is shouting, catching Reina's attention. Reina asks if they are there to give news about Arang. The person responds no. The woman tells Reina that outside, several beasts have started to gather. Reina quickly stands up. The two start walking, and Reina asks in which direction the beasts are. The woman responds that they are to the southwest. Minnie is standing with binoculars in hand. She then hands the binoculars to Reina, and with a worried expression, points to where she should look. Reina looks through the binoculars to understand what's happening. She sees several demonic rats running. Reina, still looking, comments that it seems those beasts are fleeing from something. Minnie says it's not that, and asks Reina to look higher. Reina then, still looking through the binoculars, starts to look up. She finds the target and sees a beast with enormous wings wielding a scythe. Reina, shocked, can't believe what she's seeing. She looks again at the beast with the scythe and starts trembling all over, asking why the hell that damn monster is there after disappearing for years. Minnie is frightened to see Reina trembling like that. Reina explains that the beast looks more like a demon from the darkest nightmares imaginable. Reina comments that the beast can annihilate an entire army with just a flap of its wings. It's an S-rank beast. She looks again and says that demon is Belkist. People will never forget his overwhelming power. Belkist suddenly raises his lance while flying. Reina panics and screams for everyone to run away. Belkist then slices the air, releasing a powerful energy with his scythe. The power of his scythe is so great that it cuts the building in half, causing a massive explosion. Arang drives at full speed while Seonwoo asks him to wait a minute. Seonwoo, worried, says that a normal flare signals an intermediate monster he can handle. But what does the red color mean? Is it something beyond intermediate? Seonwoo asked. Arang replies that the red signal indicates a disaster-class demonic beast has appeared, and everyone should run without looking back. Seonwoo can't believe such a monster has appeared. Seonwoo then asks Arang to stop the car. Arang refuses, wanting to get back as quickly as possible. Seonwoo shouts that with a disaster-class beast, no human can defeat it. Seonwoo tries to explain that it won't make a difference if they go there. Arang says he doesn't care about that, as long as he can save at least one person. At that moment, they see several demonic rats coming their way. Seonwoo recognizes them, saying they are Gargs, Class 20 demonic beasts, and wonders if the monsters are fleeing after detecting the disaster-class beast. The Gargs, fleeing at high speed, collide with the car they are in. The car flips, and they begin to panic inside the vehicle. They start struggling as the car spins. The car stops spinning, and Xianwu finally opens his eyes, realizing he had passed out. He is bothered by the situation he's in. Xianwu decides to get out of the overturned car and wonders how long he was unconscious and where Arang is. Xianwu places his hands on the car to try to flip it back over. He activates his physical reinforcement for strength. The car begins to move off the ground until it finally flips completely. Xianwu tries to start the car while apologizing to Arang, as survival comes first. He starts to flee, thinking that even if they survive now, the disaster-class beast will destroy everything in its path. Xianwu thinks he needs to warn the 17th district. At that moment, memories flash in Xianwu's mind. The first memory is of a child calling for her mother in the shelter. Then, he remembers Reina, Minnie, and Arang being impressed by the pile of cores. Xianwu looks in the rearview mirror and starts thinking that this situation is a mess. At that moment, Arang was running towards the shelter. When he arrives, he widens his eyes, saying this is madness. He sees a woman hugging a child on the ground. On the other side, he sees some children on the rubble. He notices several dead people and the building completely destroyed. At this moment, Arang is startled by a noise coming from behind him. He quickly looks back, scared of what he might see. He then sees Reina lying on the ground, covered in blood. Arang quickly runs towards her, asking if she is okay. Reina tries to lift her finger to say something while her body is trembling all over. However, she is too weak and lets her hand fall to the ground. Arang starts crying and shouting Reina's name. At that moment, Belkist approaches Arang, flying. Arang doesn't notice, as he is desperately calling for Reina. Belkist finally lands on the ground. Arang is startled and quickly looks back upon hearing a noise. Belkist stands imposingly in front of him. Belkist stares intently at Arang with that terrifying look. Arang is completely paralyzed with fear in front of the disaster-class demonic beast. Belkist starts to get even closer to Arang, bringing his face closer and closer. Arang, completely paralyzed, just prays for someone to save him. Belkist gets close until he is finally face-to-face with Arang. At that moment, Belkist gives a huge roar, and then looks up as he sees a portal opening in the sky. Belkist stares at the portal and then begins to fly. Arang remains completely paralyzed. Belkist flies at full speed towards the portal. Arang can't stop trembling at that moment. He kneels on the ground and thanks for having survived, not knowing how. Arang then looks back and sees Reina's lifeless body. Arang goes to the body and strokes Reina's face, lamenting that he couldn't avenge her. Arang stays a bit longer, crying over Reina's body. After that, he starts to walk away. Arang heads to the underground parking lot of the building. He continues walking with his flashlight on. He notices everything destroyed, and seeing the dead bodies on the ground, says that apparently no one survived. Arang, worried, asks where Minnie might be, as he hasn't seen her body yet. Arang looks outside and sees a tipped-over refrigerator. He finds it strange to see all the food outside the fridge. He starts walking towards the fridge, imagining that maybe a miracle has happened. Arang grabs the door and prays for it to be what he is thinking. He then opens the door and sees Minnie trembling with fear inside the refrigerator. Arang is delighted to see Minnie. Minnie asks if it really is Arang there. Arang says he is relieved she is alive. Minnie runs and grabs Arang while starting to cry. The two start to leave the underground parking lot. Arang carries Minnie on his back. Arang approaches the exit and notices something outside. It was Xianwu, standing, leaning against the pickup truck. Arang is happy to see Xianwu there. Xianwu says he is relieved to see them safe and was worried when he saw a portal opening in the sky. Xianwu asks if there are other survivors. Arang replies that no, only he and Minnie survived. Xianwu is glad that at least the two of them survived and asks what happened. Arang is shocked just thinking about it and says he saw that. He tells about the imposing demonic beast that was in front of him, but for some reason, flew away when the portal appeared. Xianwu is worried hearing that and remembers it was similar to the black mantis, which also ran away suddenly. Xianwu wonders if that is a coincidence or not. Xianwu asks what Arang will do now and if he has a place to stay. Arang is left speechless. Xianwu asks Arang if he is interested in being a guide. Arang asks what he means. Xianwu comments that when he returns to Node, he will form a team of hunters and is recruiting good members. Arang isn't sure if things will go well, but anywhere is better than there. He feels embarrassed at this moment. Xianwu tells him to stop crying, as he doesn't like slimy things. On the way to the branch, the protagonist explains that they are going to the 17th branch and that his boss is Busik, who is a very nice person. Minnie is surprised as they approach the place and asks what it is. Xianwu explains that it's an energy conversion facility. Basically, it captures emissions from coal and converts them into clean energy. Minnie, surprised, asks him to explain it in simpler terms since she's younger than Orang. Xianwu is left without words. Minnie, with a sparkle in her eye, says it seems fantastic that they convert waste into energy and asks for a tour around the place. Orang follows, observing the two talking, and feels happy that they are both alive. First, they pass by a tombstone inscribed Sky Park. Then they stand in front of a device. Minnie quickly becomes fascinated by it. She closes her eyes and begins to concentrate. Energy starts to overflow from her body. Standing, she extends her hands and, with her eyes closed, continues gathering energy into the device. The protagonist is surprised by this since Minnie can understand the principles of operations quickly. He notes that this is the potential of magical technology. They go to a huge plantation, where Minnie and Orang are amazed by it. Xianwu explains that the fight isn't just against demonic beasts. They have to do everything to ensure people can continue living in those lands. At this moment, Orang whispers for everyone to be quiet for a second. Everyone is puzzled. There was a deer in the middle of the plantation. Orang starts loading his crossbow and says that it will be their dinner. He quickly aims at the deer and shoots before it's too late. However, the arrow hits the ground, scaring the deer. Xianwu starts approaching Orang, seeing him complain that the arrow missed because of the wind. Orang is startled to see Xianwu moving quickly beside him. The protagonist continues running at high speed with his new ability. He looks intently at the deer. Quickly, he grabs a knife in his hand. He keeps running through the harvest. As he approaches, he leaps and hits the deer's neck squarely. The cut was so fast that the deer didn't have time to react. After doing this, he starts returning to the group. The protagonist is carrying the deer on his back after bringing it down. Orang and Minnie are surprised at how fast he was and ask how he did it. Orang is a bit worried since that way of running reminded him a lot of the leader of the assassins. Xianwu puts his hand on Orang's head and says he imagines what he's thinking. But there's no need to worry about anything. He says he'll explain better when he gets a chance, but for now, they should keep it between them. Orang just says, okay. The protagonist imagines that Orang thought it was the reinforcement ability being used on the legs, just like the assassin leader did. At that moment, the protagonist has a better understanding of how his abilities work. He starts remembering Chansu, and imagines that he absorbs the abilities of other metahumans. He remembers the assassin and says that basically, he can make others' abilities his own, and that's insanely strong. Meanwhile, Minnie is distracted, looking at some wind generators. She smiles and says it's her first time seeing them. Xianwu looks at her and thinks she's amazing, since she absorbs all the information she sees. He's happy to have discovered a talented person. The protagonist also says that just having Minnie safe is a great relief. She, with a sparkle in her eye, asks to meet the people in charge of the generators. Xianwu says it's okay, and when they reach the 17th district, he'll introduce her. Minnie imagines she can greatly increase the energy produced by the generators. Xianwu looks at Orang, imagining that Minnie is always in her own world. Orang just responds that she's always like that. They continue their journey by car. Xianwu informs them that the massive building ahead is the 17th district. Orang is surprised, as it is indeed a massive structure. The protagonist gets out of the car and says that it used to be a stadium before the catastrophe and that they will go straight to the node reception. They start walking there and open the door. Jamie quickly becomes surprised and shouts, asking if it's really Xianwu. She asks what happened all this time and who those kids are. Xianwu greets her while Minnie feels embarrassed to be there. Jamie quickly makes a call, informing her boss that Xianwu had returned. The three travelers sit down while Jamie is still on the phone with her superior, saying that Xianwu is back with 2 kids and that he should come there quickly. Jamie gets coffee for everyone and tells Xianwu that she's relieved to see him well, especially after receiving a call from the hunter Unjong. Everyone there is shocked. Xianwu is at a loss for words and asks if she knows everything that happened then. She says it was sad to hear the news that the team leader passed away. It was a shock for the branch leader to learn about this, as well as what happened to the hunter Shanghu. The protagonist becomes worried, hearing Jamie say that a lethal weapon was discovered 2 kilometers away from the crime scene. She says no fingerprints were found, so they still need to catch the culprit. Xianwu is relieved that there were no fingerprints on that weapon. The protagonist starts drinking his coffee, imagining that the knife flew that far. Then, the ability that awakened is quite incredible. However, not finding any fingerprints is very strange. He starts thinking about Mari and how she might have been involved, as she has high expectations of him. Jamie starts yelling at the protagonist, saying that for the time he left Gwangmyong, he should have already reached the 17th district. Everyone thought he had died along the way. He looks at Arang and Minnie and responds that he had to do something along the way, and those kids got involved too. Seanwoo begins to stand up and says he has some information to sell, so he asks Jamie to go to the office for a bit. Jamie gets nervous since he wants to do this in the middle of the drama she was making there. He just looks back and says there's nothing to do with those who are already dead. At least he is safe there. Arriving late also has to do with that. Jamie then asks them to go to the office since it seems like it's important information. They go to the office, and Jamie asks what happened for him to be like this. Seonwoo asks if she knew there was a shelter in Mokdong and says that place was destroyed and the citizens were all annihilated. She says a shelter being destroyed out of nowhere is not so uncommon and asks how that is important. Seonwoo asks her to speak more quietly. He says it wasn't simply destroyed, it was destroyed by the beast Belkist. Jamie is completely terrified to hear the name of this demonic beast. Extremely scared, she asks if Seonwoo is sure about what he's saying. After all, Belkist never appeared on the Korean peninsula except during the catastrophe. He starts shouting, saying that besides him and those two kids, everyone in the shelter and the group of assassins was killed by Belkist. Jamie begins to sit down and asks Seonwoo to speak more slowly. She starts noting everything down in the system as told by the protagonist, stating that all the bastard assassins became food for Belkist. Seonwoo becomes thoughtful, imagining that this wasn't exactly what happened. However, he has many things to worry about at that moment. Jamie then asks what happened to Belkist. The protagonist informs her that it disappeared into a portal right after destroying the shelter. Jamie feels downcast, imagining how the people in Mokdong are so unlucky, but at least there were survivors. Seonwoo says he has information about Belkist's attack pattern, but it's only a hypothesis. Jamie quickly starts typing, saying that a hypothesis from a survivor who encountered this legendary demonic beast is of high value. He then says that apparently Belkist uses body temperature to track humans around him. Jamie is surprised to hear that and asks if there is any evidence to support such a hypothesis. He informs her that the only person who survived did so by hiding inside a refrigerator. Jamie starts jotting down all the information, saying that this information will be very useful in the future. Seonwoo makes it clear that it would be interesting for her to offer a good price for such rare information. Jamie says that information of that level has a minimum value of 40 cores. Seonwoo agrees, noting that an S-rank beast pays well. The protagonist says that instead of cores, he wants information equivalent to those 40 cores. Jamie says that's fine and asks what he wants to know. He says he wants to find a lone metahuman who can lead a team. Jamie finds this strange and asks if he doesn't actually want to find a group of metahumans that needs a guide, as it has always been. Seonwoo says that if he wanted that, Node itself would find a team for him. So why would he trade 40 cores for that information? Jamie is confused and asks why he wants that information then. The protagonist simply says that he awakened. Jamie is surprised to hear that. He says that only the branch chief and she know about it. Still surprised, she says she understands and congratulates him for it. She then asks what his ability is and what rank he is in. Seonwoo replies that his ability is body reinforcement and his rank is close to 15. Jamie is surprised, as he is barely awakened and is already at rank 15, which is a mid-tier class. He says he isn't sure since he hasn't taken the exam. She then sits down in the chair and says it's all crazy since the best guide of the 17th district became a mid-tier metahuman. At that moment, she realizes something. She asks if that's why he wants to form a team. He replies yes and wants those two kids on his team. Jamie says she'll have to think about it since the Marlin team collapsed like that, and the best guide simply awakened. She looks outside and says that Seonwoo leading a team is a big deal. However, probably the chief will finally feel relieved. They then go to Chief Busik's office. He is happy to see Seonwoo again. Busik takes off his glasses and says that it seems the world changes very quickly. He looks at a painting and says that his friends, who were supposed to stay with him forever, ended up abandoning him. Jamie bows her head, imagining how sad the death of leader Chansu was. Busik jokes with Seonwoo, saying that an arrogant brat finally grew up and became a respectable adult. The protagonist laughs and says that it seems a very energetic person ended up getting old. The branch chief bursts into laughter, saying that's precisely why he had asked not to cause any more trouble. He suddenly stops laughing and asks if he really seems that old. Seonwoo and Jamie remain silent. Busik calls them idiots for making them even more scared since no one answered. Busik says he's happy they returned safely, but says they need to change the subject. Suddenly he becomes serious, looks at Seonwoo, and asks if he really awakened. The protagonist just nods and says yes. Busik says he understands and that it finally happened. Seonwoo doesn't understand what he means by that. Busik asks if he wants to hide the fact that he awakened. The protagonist responds that he does, and that only he and Jamie should know about it. The branch chief says that metahuman management is very cautious, so he doesn't understand the reason for hiding this from Node. He asks if this means he will no longer be loyal to Node. Seonwoo says that, to be honest, it was the branch chief who took him in, not Node. Busik feels embarrassed, saying that he doesn't need to say such embarrassing things like that. Busik takes the opportunity to ask Seonwoo about the two kids accompanying him. The protagonist replies that he plans to put them on the team and will teach someone else to be a guide. He thinks of Arang and says he is very talented. He also thinks of Minnie and says she is a bit different. He says she is an extremely talented magical technologist. Both Jamie and the branch chief are surprised to learn that the girl is a magical technologist. Busik is astonished to see that Seonwoo not only returned home, but also brought a magical technologist with him. Busik then imagines that Seonwoo wants to place the technologist on the team so that Node doesn't use her to make offensive weapons. The protagonist says he expected no less from the branch chief. He takes the opportunity to say that if his team can receive missions, he wants to take on missions where they subdue assassins, saying this with a serious expression. Busik is concerned about this, and remarks that it seems Seonwoo wants to hunt other humans. The protagonist begins to stand up and says it's exactly as the chief said earlier. Basically, the world changes rapidly. Seonwoo turns around and asks Jamie to gather everyone from the 17th district. She, not understanding, asks if he literally wants her to gather everyone. Seonwoo responds affirmatively. Quickly, everyone from the district is gathered. The people form a line, confused about what's happening. Seonwoo takes one person's hand. He closes his eyes and concentrates while holding the person's hand. The man whose hand is being held doesn't understand what's going on. The protagonist opens his eyes and tells the man he can leave. He then calls the next person over. Again, he takes the person's hand and closes his eyes to concentrate. A woman becomes irritated and says she doesn't believe what's happening. The woman with orange hair complains about why they called all those busy people to waste their time there. Jamie quickly apologizes and asks them to wait a moment, even though it might be unpleasant. Seonwoo asks the next person to come forward. The red-haired woman tells the man to move out of her way because it's her turn. She extends her hand and tells Seonwoo to do whatever he wants to do quickly. The protagonist just apologizes for the rudeness. He then takes the woman's hand. At that moment, the redhead feels something strange in her body. Seonwoo also feels something as soon as he touches her. The red-haired woman quickly slaps Seonwoo's hand away. She is scared and asks what he just did. Seonwoo, worried, wonders if the woman is a metahuman. Seonwoo awkwardly apologizes, but asks her to give him her hand again. The concerned woman asks if he really wants her hand again, even though she said she felt something strange. The protagonist then holds her hand again. He continues to concentrate. Suddenly he hears a new voice in his head saying, kill her and steal her power." He opens his eyes, completely terrified by this. The woman, not understanding anything, notices that Seonwoo is breathless. She, still not understanding much of what's happening, asks Seonwoo something. She sees that he doesn't let go of her hand and asks why he became so nervous and breathless like that. She says this very embarrassed. Jamie asks what the hell is going on. The protagonist asks the woman if she is interested in hunting demonic beasts or if she has ever tried. The woman has no idea what he is talking about and says that although he is cute, his flirting is quite weak. Seonwoo becomes worried, imagining that he surely heard that voice in his head. So without a doubt, she is a meta-human despite being rude. The protagonist thanks everyone for their presence and informs them that they can leave. He had imagined that he would be able to find a good candidate among those people, but he probably won't find anyone in the 17th district. He thanks everyone again for their cooperation. The people, still confused, wonder why they wasted their time there. The woman looks at Seonwoo and asks him to wait, which surprises him. She puts her finger on his chin and begins to say that he called everyone there and made them spend their precious time, and he won't say why. Seonwoo looks at her and imagines that she is really inexperienced. He asks her if she is acting that way just because he is affiliated with Node. He also says that it seems she hasn't learned to survive in the desert since she doesn't know her place. The red-haired woman then crosses her arms and finds it interesting that he is affiliated with Node. At that moment, a group arrives and asks the red-haired woman if she's okay. Seonwoo turns and whispers to Jamie, asking who those useless people are. She asks if he knows the hunter Hyunsoo. Basically, they are his subordinates. The men approach her while she says it's a pity because she wanted to spend more time with him. Jamie explains that the red-haired woman is the wife of hunter Hyunsoo. Seonwoo asks if this man wasn't expelled. Jamie responds that he was, but other things happened. Xianwu looks closely at the red-haired woman, thinking that the branch chief had pity in vain, it seems. The woman asks how he will react. The protagonist asks how long she will keep thinking that Hunter Hyunsu will stay with her. One of the men gets furious and says he's heard enough nonsense. He grabs the protagonist's shirt and demands he take back everything he said to his sister-in-law. Xianwu starts to get stressed with the situation, wondering why everyone there is crossing the line. At that moment, an arrow hits the man's arm. He begins to scream in pain while the red-haired woman asks who did it. Someone appears, saying that everyone should retreat if they don't want to die. It was Arang and Minnie. He says he will kill anyone who lays a finger on Xianwu. Jamie asks why those kids are there. The protagonist doesn't understand anything. The woman screams that they are just two kids and orders the men to bring them down. The men quickly run towards the two. Immediately, Arang fires an arrow at the ground. The men notice something shiny on the arrow. They panic, seeing that the shine is from a core. Immediately, they crouch down, expecting a huge explosion from the arrow. All the men crouch while the woman stands in disbelief at what's happening. She starts calling all the men idiots, since the core is clearly fake. Arang laughs and says it really is, but the next one won't be. The woman scolds the men, saying that even if the kids had cores with them, they wouldn't explode in the middle of the district. Arang says it seems nothing will work. Minnie crouches and says it seems so. Suddenly, everyone is startled when they look up. Jamie can't believe it and asks where that child got it from. Minnie is holding a bazooka aimed at the men, and Arang asks if they should test it there. Everyone is left speechless at seeing that. The red-haired woman, furious, tells the kids they will get them later. Arang taunts her, asking how she plans to do that. Everyone leaves and the woman starts calling herself stupid since she had nothing to gain from those rude kids. Jamie is worried since the red-haired woman speaks as if she considers herself the most polite person in the world. Xianwu looks up and asks if everyone is okay. Arang and Minnie, happy, respond that they are. The protagonist puts his hand on his head, thinking those kids are troublesome, and he has a long way ahead. Some time passes, and Jamie reports the incident to the branch chief. She asks what Xianwu was trying to find. Busik imagines he was looking for metahumans for his team. The chief thinks that Xianwu believes there are still people who haven't awakened among the citizens. Jamie asks how Xianwu will distinguish who is a metahuman and who is a normal citizen. The branch chief comments that he's heard metahumans can sense when another person is one too. Jamie is surprised since she didn't know that. Busik comments that Xianwu had a really interesting idea and is surprised since he would use that ability as a tool to distinguish who is a metahuman and who is not. Jamie comments that there was no reason for Xianwu to involve Shin in this. The branch chief asks why not, just because her personality is terrible? Jamie admits that it is a relevant fact, but that woman lived a life far from wars. Busik comments that no one knows what the other goes through. After all, Shin may never have had the chance to show her potential, and that's why she's hidden her abilities until now. He also cites Xianwu as an example now that he has returned as a metahuman. Jamie thinks that's a good example. The branch chief stretches a bit and says that since they mentioned Xianwu, he should help him evolve faster. He wonders if they should prepare for the next stage. Xianwu meets with Minnie and Arang in the desert. He asks Minnie if she prepared a flag, and she responds that she did. He says it would be better if they didn't have to use it, but she needs to be ready not to hesitate. Minnie says she understands that. The protagonist asks Minnie if she really calculated the radius correctly. After all, they can't just use a bazooka carelessly, and he doesn't want to be blown away. She asks him not to worry about it. Xianwu continues his explanations but is interrupted by Arang when he notices something. He quickly informs Xianwu that some people are approaching them. The protagonist tries to get a better look, but can't recognize who those people are amid the desert dust. He becomes worried since he doesn't know if they are hunters or something else. Xianwu asks Minnie who else knew they were there, besides Jamie. She replies that she didn't tell anyone they would be there. The three of them continue observing the approaching people. The protagonist starts to get worried since he has no idea who it could be. Arang asks if the thin woman they saw last time is the person with the surname Kang. Xianwu asks if the name is Kang Hyun-soo because it's not her. Minnie asks who she is then, since he said he knew all the hunters in the region. Xianwu says he knows them, but has never seen her before. The three people from the desert approach and say they felt something wrong with the climate. Xianwu asks the three to stop walking. He extends his hand and asks everyone to reveal their identifications. The man in the red shirt says it's a bit complicated since they are on a secret mission. The man with a sword on his back asks if that group is the new hunting team of the 17th district. Xianwu is shocked, wondering how these people know that. The man in red jokes, saying that the way Xianwu is always on guard reminds him of a cat with its fur standing on end. Arang then steps forward and tells everyone to shut up before he buries their mouths. The man in red is surprised and quickly moves. Arang is startled, asking what he is doing. As the man approaches, he says he has never seen anything like this before. He looks at the arrows and asks if the tips have cores. The crouched man says it's a very interesting technology. He suddenly gets scared when he sees something. Arang had a knife pointed at his neck, saying it's not cool to touch other people's weapons. The man quickly stands up and apologizes, saying he was going to back off but was surprised by the arrows. The man retreats and says their meeting was fate. His teammate tells him to control himself. Xianwu is worried since it was Arang who was in danger at that man's hands, not the other way around. The protagonist also comments that he didn't even notice when the other team member drew one of their swords. He looks at the three and imagines that the woman in the middle is the leader, so she is probably stronger than the other man. Xianwu becomes even more worried, thinking they are not just any people, and wonders why they suddenly appeared there. The man in red tells Xianwu that based on his reaction, apparently, Busik didn't inform him of anything. Xianwu asks what the branch chief should have said. The protagonist asks the man in red if he really knows the branch chief. The man says it seems they didn't inform anything. He says he will tell everything once they finish the introductions. He explains that they are the secret team of the 17th district. Xianwu wonders if there really is a secret team besides his own. The man says he imagined Xianwu would be surprised since the branch made sure of that. After all, if everyone knew about it, they wouldn't be a secret team anymore. The woman is the first to introduce herself, saying her name is Sina. She introduces the other member, saying his name is Hyun, and he only speaks when spoken to, so she asks everyone to talk to him frequently. The last to introduce himself is Jae-seung, who says he is the leader of the team called Blue Code. He also says they are under Xianwu's care. The protagonist is surprised to hear the name Blue Code because it's quite unusual. They then greet each other, and the protagonist says his name is Xianwu and his team's name is Carniv. Jae-seung finds that interesting and asks if it's a word derived from carnival. Xianwu responds that it's not. He took the word from carnivorous. Jae-seung thinks it's cool since it comes from eating meat, which sounds aggressive and cool. Xianwu looks ahead and starts thinking he gave this name based on the name he gave his ability, symbolizing that it devours other abilities. Hence he named it carnivorous. The three members gather, and Sina says it's a good name, at least better than Blue Code. Hye-seung feels embarrassed and asks what's wrong with the name Blue Code. Hyun comments that the old team name was Blue Team, and the leader just added a random word to the name. Hyun approaches Hye-seung and laughs, saying they only later found out it's a medical term. Jae-seung, embarrassed, tells him to be quiet just like he was a little while ago. Sina starts teasing, pretending to be in a hospital saying, Blue Code, cardiac arrest, emergency, emergency. Jae-seung gets furious with those jokes. Xianwu watches the team and thinks that at least they are relaxed and not too serious. Xianwu remembers when he met with the branch chief and asked if the word carnivorous was a bad name for the team. Busik said it wasn't, and that it's better than Marlin in many ways. Busik commented that he couldn't believe Xianwu chose that name again. Xianwu didn't understand what he meant by again. The chief commented that Xianwu's team has a common guide and a magical technologist, making it unbalanced. Busik said the team needs someone specialized in close combat. Xianwu looked at him and said he expected no less from the branch chief. Busik said he would ask Jamie to look for metahumans for the team, but it would be difficult since most are already in a team. Xianwu told him that as long as they find someone trustworthy, he would wait as long as it takes. The branch chief became serious and commented that the shelter in Buncheon would collapse next month. Xianwu couldn't believe it. Busik mentioned that a talented close combat metahuman from that shelter wants to join Xianwu's team. The protagonist asked how the chief knew this, joking that maybe he has an ability to see the future. Busik laughed and said he'd never heard of such an ability. The branch chief said that if he had that ability, he would never have let leader Chansu die. The protagonist felt upset and apologized. Busik turned, smiling, and asked if Xianwu was training the two kids. He responded affirmatively. Busik said he was worried since Xianwu awakened late, but he was relieved to see such determination. Again, Xianwu didn't understand what he meant by that. Intrigued by these words, the protagonist asked if the chief already knew Xianwu would awaken. Busik burst into laughter and said, "Who knows?" After all, he had just said he didn't have the ability to predict the future. The protagonist found it strange since, although the chief dodged some questions, he definitely knew everything that was happening. Busik wished Xianwu to have a good team and become very strong over time. The protagonist asked what he meant by that, wondering if he was planning something different. Again, the branch chief laughed, asking if it wouldn't be boring if they knew everything beforehand. Shanwu felt nervous as he realized he had acquired a secret team and a mentor for training. Busik definitely knew everything in advance. The protagonist is frightened because it's impossible to know the extent of the chief's knowledge.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and like the video. Thank you.